No, I think it's fine.
It's doing fine.
Thank you, Dean.
Good evening, everyone. Here we are once again.
So what we're going to do today?
No. Let's ask Mark. Mark always knows what we're going to do.
He's always prepared.
Can you guys hear us? Everybody hear us?
Yeah. We'll assume they can hear us. We're not saying anything interesting, so they're not saying anything.
Let the fun begin.
Do you have is the volume on the TV?
No.
It's on coming over a computer.
I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, we have to mute.
I think we are still.
Nope. People are saying they hear us. I see Eric
Good.
out there.
All right.
It's like romper room. Romper-roo. Tell me true. I see Vinny. I see Anthony. I see
what?
Old Man River.
I see a blur. I can't focus that far away.
Anthony, the winner in the MPG pen contest.
Who was it?
Anthony in New York.
Oh, Anthony in New York was the MPG pen
Jersey.
winner?
Yeah.
New Jersey? Nice. Congratulations. Someday I got to go to that. That's the MPG?
I hear it's pretty nice.
From what I hear, it is.
Yeah.
I heard it's a bargain, too.
I heard it's the best show out there.
Well, we know that.
At least the biggest show out there.
I hear they have really good demonstrators.
Oh, really?
So I hear. I don't know.
That's just what
It's
I hear.
all a blur. I don't
What
remember it.
happens.
That sleep deprivation, it's all a blur.
Heck, we were only up till midnight on Friday night. That was practically immediate bedtime.
Yeah.
No, we were up till like 2:30,
3,
3 o'clock. It's
That was Saturday, wasn't it?
both nights.
Yeah.
Thursday night and Friday night.
Dean, you're still coming over the computer, though.
Okay.
But that's good because you're not coming through the headset.
You didn't get it?
Uh-uh.
Oh, I am.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then maybe I turned it down too much. I'll turn it up a little.
So it's Dreamtime Woodcraft Mike. Just getting caught up on your sleep now. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well,
So that's good because you only have about 11 months, 3 weeks. 11 months, 1 week.
Before we do it again.
Oh, look at Nathan Wick. The vendor room was great along with the demonstrators. Nathan, did you have a favorite demonstrator?
Well, you can't put him on the spot.
That's-
Clearly, he's going to
that's
say
a
me,
real
but
danger.
that
No, I was waiting for him to say John.
no.
Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, I rushed home. Still haven't unpacked, and jumped into yard work and mowed grass and fixed the lawnmowers and.
So while we're waiting, does anybody have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about that might not be on today's topic? My favorite demonstrator was Christy. I'll let her know. She is so entertaining.
Last year, one of the people that we ran into afterwards gave me a critique that I was not very passionate about it. When you say Christy, she is passionate about it. She really enjoys her demonstrations. Makes it obvious that she's enjoying her demonstrations.
Well, she's just a lively person.
Yes,
She is.
She's
She really
just
is.
so energetic.
And she has a wealth of knowledge. Obviously,
Yep.
when they own EasyWood Tools, they certainly have the background to give you an awful lot of information that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Another thing is, if you guys wouldn't mind in the comments, please let me know. We've got a couple new demonstrators already lined up for next year for the event. But if you've got any other topics or ideas of something you want, please put them up in the comments on the side. We will watch them. We do monitor them. And if it's okay, I always ask, you can always send a list to sales@exoticblanks.com. And we're always looking for new ideas for topics that people want.
Actually, this evening, this evening was kind of a result of the MPG. While we were there, we saw an awful lot of hybrid pens and a couple of other things. I had a number of people talk to me about hybrids and how do you work with them and so forth. So it was a good opportunity for us to take something from that and see if we couldn't come out and give you some information that will be helpful to you. So,
And hello, Revo Woodworks.
yeah, Revo, good to see you. Jake, good to see you.
The roundtables of stories were good. Where are we standing at time?
Yeah, we got
10
about 10
minutes.
minutes.
Well, look at that. Exotic Blanks videos. Watch live now. Hybrid Blanks, start to finish. My
Let me-
watch is telling me to watch this.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
If it's any good, let us
Yeah,
know.
it's gonna go great. We've spent so much time planning.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Very spontaneous most of the time, but I think that's what keeps it fun.
Hmm.
Can't ever say it was scripted.
I was in Hawaii during MPG.
Hawaii?
Oh, Hawaii, probably, yeah.
I want to go to Hawaii. Of course, it's going to cost me a fortune just to ship all that wood back home. All that wood you can't get around here, you know.
Apparently, you can't get it there either.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
I have a number of people that I've talked to because I would love to get some curly koa.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And essentially, and people who have the ability or are in Hawaii have told me, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, right here, I'm on the island and I can't get it either.
Wow.
So
When I was in Alaska, that's how I got my antler back.
Mhm.
yeah, it makes
All my
sense.
caribou antler, reindeer antler, any of the antler that I was picking up out there, I just FedExed it back to the house
Sure.
because I didn't want to have to deal with customs because while I'm in the United States, at some point you go back through Canada
Yep.
to if you're on anything. So
Sure.
yeah, it was kind of weird.
You should have got some musk ox horn, though. I'm a little disappointed.
If I knew what it was, I would have.
Should we talk about cracking or should we wait?
Talk about what?
Cracking as you assemble.
Oh, you want to? I thought we were going to do that next month.
Well, we'll do it next
No,
month.
but we can talk about it. Someone had that question. I
Yeah.
think that's great. So someone had a question for Ed and said that one of the challenges that they were getting was cracking the pen when they were actually going through assembly. So Ed asked us for our ideas, and with that, I'll turn it over to Ed.
Yeah, we both had the same input.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly correct. When I get calls, I obviously relate to what has happened to me in pen turning, and when they said, you know, I'm running into a problem. The Infinity, particularly, is cracking when I put it together, and we sold a fair number of Infinities. So I'm A, concerned because it's my pen, and B, concerned because if there's something wrong with it, I want to make sure we get it fixed. But when I made a lot of pens, one of the things that I did most often was ruin the pen in the last 30 seconds of assembly. I made an awful lot of cigar pens. And the cigar pen, I put the nib in first, and if you put the nib in and got it slightly cocked, you could easily crack the pen. So my first reaction when people talk about cracking is it cocking the piece that you're trying to put in? And the second reaction is these days, virtually every pen I make, I get glue on the inside of the tube. And for me, that is a problem that I have to spend a fair amount of time at to clean it out. So I asked both of these guys when they came through the door today, if you crack one, what do you think is wrong? And there was kind of a simultaneous answer of there's crap in the tube. So just as a piece of information for people to take away from this, you have basically three pen turners that are almost 100 years of experience among us. and we still crack them from time to time because we don't take the time to get the crap out
Whoa,
of
I didn't say that.
No.
No.
No,
never admitted
I
to
mean,
it.
you know,
I was
come
thinking,
on.
wow, look at that. Edwin's like, you got 50 years and you got 50 years
Yeah.
to make 100 because I don't have that.
Yeah, when you asked, I thought, oh, here, look, I've cracked tubes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So at any rate, the long story short, when you put anything in, when you glue in a tube, be aware that when that glue, most glues dry, they dry absolutely clear. So when you look in the tube and you see, oh boy, it's wonderful, there's nothing in there. Take anything that you, I always take a penknife. I have a bunch of pen knives that I buy at Harbor Freight. They're $1 a piece and they look like a key, but it's the right size blade. Take a penknife and go in there and scrape a little bit on the inside of the tube, and that will make anything that's in there roughed up, and you'll be able to see that there's junk in the tube still.
Just don't over force it because you'll stretch the brass tube and then your compression fit won't work.
And then what do you do on that one?
Well, what I do is
Yep. Yeah, I love your idea. What you do.
Loctite.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
use Thread Locker Blue Loctite.
That was another part of the question that I had. He said, I got glue on it, and because I got glue on it, it ruined the finish on my pen. Now, that does happen, particularly if you're using CA glue. It happens very easily.
Yeah.
However, if you're going to put anything inside there to try to keep the little parts in,
And he was talking about this.
yeah,
That wasn't the threads.
Yeah.
But I can tell you another thing he probably did is he put the glue here and then tried to put it in the tube and it squished everything back. He should have put the glue in the brass tube
Correct.
and then applied this.
Correct.
Yeah, Piney does exactly what I do. Is I just use a little rat tail file to turn out any glue, and I always make sure that it is. And if I ever, you taught me it, is if I ever have a problem with it, I never use glue in that tube.
Right.
I use that blue Loctite.
Yeah, Loctite works very well. And it doesn't stain your parts. If it overflows and gets on the metal, it wipes right off. It doesn't discolor or hurt the finish.
If it gets on the finish, that's the bigger thing.
Yeah.
Any of the other things.
The pen blank itself, if it's glue, you're going to have to take it off and put it back on the lathe and refinish it. So
That's right.
So I'll let it sit before I do any assembly. One other thing though, and we talked about this earlier, and I see a couple questions coming in, so I'll get to those too. The other one that we've talked about too is not only in assembly but in use. And one of the ones that are prone to it are the Sierra series, where if you have too much glue or junk, as you say, in the top part of it, and you go to make that assembly, you can still assemble it. And sometimes you put the pen together and it won't twist. And you'll look in the hole on the bottom and it's perfectly clear. What's happened was that top will compress on that transmission and it will get stuck in there and you can't twist it.
yeah, it's not a smooth twist.
That top is probably more important on a Sierra style pen to make sure that one's clean than the bottom part.
It's a problem I've never had.
I've seen it a million times.
Really?
Yeah, people ask me about it all the time.
Okay.
Well, and the other issue too, when you talk about assembly, if it's a flat top like these, you're fine with it, but a lot of them have the ball.
Yep.
And early on, everything had the ball. And so it's very difficult to try to hold that on your press, even though it's got that little hole or divot you can kind of line it up on. It can be challenging to get that ball center because it just wants to roll around it. So oftentimes it won't go straight in. And for that, I usually take a scrap block and I'll drill a hole in it and put it over the ball and then press it in. Just helps keep everything straight.
So a couple comments on this. I use a deburring tool. Yep, I agree with you there. I use wax sheets to plug the tubes that I buy. If anybody's been on this before, you know that my wife actually does all this work. So I know that she doesn't use that and she uses the glue on it. I use a gun barrel cleaner bushing to clean my tubes. I agree with that one too. And then the other one that came up earlier is about presentation. When you sell a pen, do you use a box or a pouch? And I always tell people, I know this is going to seem weird, I use the plastic tube for most of mine because I tell them that I want to encourage people when I give it to them to use it. And when you put it in a box, most of the time it goes in the desk on the box.
I think it's a good idea to have both, though, because some people are looking for a gift. And if you can sell them something in a box, their work is done.
So when I sell it, if the pen's over $150, I do give them the box. And then I also give everybody the option to acquire a box from me if they want to acquire a box to make it done. So
Boxes are nice if you're selling it as a present. Most of the time when you're selling at a show, you can ask them, is it for you? Is it for someone dear to you? Is it a present, etc.? I sold an awful lot of boxes because I looked at people and said, if you try to wrap this pen, it's going to look a whole lot like a pen. If you put it into one of these boxes, it's easier to wrap and you can give it to them and it'll be done. So there are things that can be really advantageous about boxes. But these days, boxes are getting, for the most part, awfully expensive.
yeah.
So, unless you've got to give them the opportunity to buy one, but I wouldn't include it in the price anymore.
So Dennis, I agree with you 100%.
And
10 minutes after you take the pen out of the box is forgotten.
Yep.
I always include a leather sleeve on the lower value pens, and then after that threshold, I enclose it in a leather pouch. Dennis, you're saying the exact same thing. Thank you.
I should have went to Pymie's house for
Yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
Hey John. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was coming.
Oh,
in.
okay. Go ahead.
Real quick, looking at what they're seeing in the past. Do we have all these overhead lights on? I just don't want it to be drowned out with too much light.
I think we're okay, unless
Yeah, if you look at the other one.
at this one, that
Okay.
one is.
Do you think it's just the screen?
Dean, what does the color look like on your side, please?
Seems okay to me.
Okay.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Yeah, it might just be the screen.
6:01. We're off and running. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Once again, we're always happy to have the crowd with us. We are just back from the MPG, and all of us are rested a week or two afterwards, I'm happy to say. So, but that's the reason that we're so late this month. I just wasn't up for it after the MPG. I was trying desperately to recover.
I'm still tired.
But it was a great time, and as we always do, we're going to give Mark a couple of minutes to just talk about the MPG, what it was, what it's going to be, how wonderful we are, all those spectacular things. So many of you were there. So if you want to make your comments, we're certainly open to any suggestions or whatever. So Mark,
No, actually, I like that. So if you guys were at the MPG, put a little comment on the side and let other people know how well you liked it. If there was any issue with it, please let John know, because that'll be his new department that he'll deal with any issues with the MPG.
Sure.
But you know
that's
what?
easy.
I thought it was a fantastic event. Hopefully one of the things that you guys who have been there can agree with, it's a great event to make friends. We spend more time talking to people, making friends. It's a great time to catch up on people who I see on this video, on the video chat. So we have a blast at doing it, and I like hanging out. The nice thing about it was, I think both nights we were in that foyer till
in the lobby.
midnight.
Well, after midnight. Yeah.
1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was a blast. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who did attend. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. I hope you had as much fun as we do. Look forward to next year. We've got some new topics that we're going to be putting in there, and got some new ideas from people. We do read those surveys, and we understand. We really take a lot of time with the surveys. There were a lot of nice comments in the survey and a lot of good ideas. So we look forward to next year, and I hope you guys do too.
Thanks, Mark. Part of the MPG was a contest for the pens. We have that every year. And it's broken down into 3 categories based on how long you've been turning pens. And again, that's part of what created this meeting tonight. I am fortunate to be one of the judges for these events most of the time. And one of the things about it is they bring in all these pens, and there's basically 20 pens laying on the counter, 20, 21, 25, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then they say, pick the best of the crowd. So one of the things that is interesting is that one of the other judges and I tend to basically say, okay, well, you pick 5, I'll pick 5, and we'll take those as the 10 that we're actually going to work with. When you do that, this year particularly, the hybrid pens that had both wood and resin really stuck out of the crowd. There were also some really neat segmenting pens, but it intrigued me after all the pens I've made that my eye is drawn to these that have a little contrast in them. So in looking at them, many were not as finished as you might want it to be. So I looked at that and thought, we really ought to talk about that. We ought to talk about how do you make these things? How can you choose the woods that you're going to use so that it will give you a better long-term impression? What can you do to it so that it will be a good piece forever? If you make something nice and bright and shiny with a wax, it has a life of maybe a month before it's going to start to look very dull. So that's the purpose of what we're hoping to do tonight. We hope to start from scratch. As most of you know, John is a very accomplished caster.
Active anyhow.
Active, accomplished caster. So he'll go into a little bit of what he picks and how he makes these things. And then Mark is a very accomplished turner. Not that John isn't, but Mark is more, he's there more often.
Mark makes more than I do, absolutely. Doing that many shows.
But he was much faster too. And unfortunately we couldn't have Donna here who really does
really makes them.
But apparently I don't do any casting, so that's good.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that aside.
Mark sells them. Donna does a great job making them.
All that aside, let's get started with.
Can I interrupt real quick?
No, you can't interrupt.
One other thing that I really like about, and I don't know, John, if you were planning on covering this, but one other thing that I really like about hybrids is not only the color variations and things like that draw your eye, but it's that I can use then every part of that tree. Mm-hmm. So I could take that little bit of scrap that I have, and I can do something with it, and the more deformed that it looks, the better it's going to be.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it is, some of it, especially when you're in the United States, most of our wood is a light color. Mm-hmm. And so you can really drive some contrast into it by doing it. So I assume you were going to maybe you weren't going to get into that early, but that's what I love about doing this. Mm-hmm. And the casting part of it is I can take all these scraps of wood that I've collected over all the years and just make something out of it that I think looks great.
So what I do, I just ask Ed.
Yeah.
Because Ed has more pieces like this than probably all of us put together. And that's exactly where this came from. So hybrid casting is, it's one of the fun parts because every blank is different, right? You're never going to get the same results out of it. And if you've got wood that's all the same species, the likelihood of getting a blank that looks identical to itself, it's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But you can mix your colors as well and have a lot of fun with it. And just in case you don't know what we're talking about, our hybrids, and Dean, I'll just have you kind of switch over to the close-up. Our hybrids are basically that, right? We're looking for wood that by itself we can't really do much with, but we can turn some resin around it or cast some resin around it and turn it and come up with a full blank. Our biggest chore is deciding how we're going to cast the piece that we have. And in the Sierra cases, the wood wasn't very wide, so I opted to have shorter pieces with the resin in between. That way, every blank had wood on top and bottom and resin in the middle. And on this one, the wood pieces were kind of random throughout the mold, so obviously the placement of everything is random as well. So we'll go back to the main view. When we talk about burl, what we're talking about, or at least what everybody thinks about when we talk about burl, is something like this. Think about a natural live edge with all these peaks and valleys in it, something that we can pour resin over the top of. So when we turn it sideways, we've got what we call a hybrid, right? Half resin, half wood. This is maple. This is something that is pretty common in our area. And I know Mark and I usually compete over who's going to get it first, and Dawn normally beats us out at it. So these maple blanks, so I don't understand why these companies cut the cap off so that they can get to the center. And now it's become a market of its own. For a while there, everybody would cut this off and throw it in a burn pile. And after we started showing people what you can do with it, these companies realize they're throwing money away. So the problem with a burl like this is when you get it, they're not always clean. So when you get them, a lot of times they're going to look like this. It's going to have bark on it, or it's going to have all this in between the bark and the wood itself, all these inclusions, or maybe some loose knots.
Throw it in the close-up, John.
Okay. So we have to remove all of this extra bark, because if you don't, what happens when you cast that, it creates a weak spot between the resin and the wood. So what we have to do is we have to be able to go in here and pop all this off, and without making a huge mess, this way, here we go. Without making a huge mess on Ed's table, as you can see, all the good stuff is underneath. And this is what we want to expose. We have to remove all this loose bark, and we have to get to what's underneath, all the peaks and valleys, and that's what's going to give us our end result that we're going to cast. So a few things I like to use. Sorry about the mess, Ed.
That's all right. I'll
let Mark
Just
sweep
later.
it up when we're all done.
That's good.
So a few things what I like to use, honestly, is anything I have laying around, and in this case, a small screwdriver, a soft bristled brass brush. I went to Harbor Freight. I picked up a pick set. All this stuff comes in handy just to get in and underneath all this bark and be able to remove it. Now, if your wood isn't dry, and this is just casting 101 when we talk about it, moisture for turning is different than moisture for casting, right? When you turn pieces of wood, you can have some low percentages of moisture in it, but when you cast it, it needs to be 0 because you don't want your resin to foam up. So what we have to do is, what I do, I go in here and I remove everything that I can with the tools here. And then if there's some spots that just aren't going to break free very easily, I want to set this in the oven. And so what I'll do is I'll start out by setting it in the oven rack. I'll heat the oven up to about 215 to 225, and I'll let it sit in there for a couple of hours. And I'll take it out and look at it. As this dries and you lose the moisture, you're going to be able to get in here and pop all this stuff out. So eventually you're going to get it down to clean wood, and then I just come in and I'd scrub it all to make sure it's good and clean, and then we're going to be ready for casting.
One thing, if it's okay to
Yes.
interrupt, one thing too is that a general rule of thumb is make sure that you, if you have to, take a little bit more than. So if you knock off a little piece, it doesn't matter when you actually done casting it. You'll see,
Right.
You'll see exactly what you have.
So one thing to kind of just have in the back of your head is if you're going to cast a piece and maybe it has a straight edge on it, and this is just my preference, I don't like to cast something that leaves a straight edge in my blank. So if you look at all my blanks, they're live edge, they're wavy, they're basically random shapes. There's nothing that's a straight cut edge. And again, that's just my preference. I've seen some really nice blanks out there with straight edges in them, but it's not what I like to do. So if I get something that has a straight edge on it, I might come in here with a file. First, I'll start with a razor blade and kind of hack at it. I can come in here with a file and just sand on some of this, add a little groove, a little wave, a little texture to it. So when I pour my resin, you're not going to know that I just man-made all that, and it's just going to give your blank more character in the final stages.
John, JP Woodworker asks if you don't stabilize the wood before casting, do you have to seal it? You're going to talk about stabilization in a minute.
So
right.
The big thing about casting is, do we or don't we have to stabilize? Now, I used to be at the point where I always felt like if I was going to cast something, I wanted to stabilize it because I felt like it was a little easier to turn. And especially if your tools aren't sharp, which we kind of talked about earlier, if you're not going to stabilize it, there's a few things you have to be careful of. And one is using dyes in your resin. If I were going to cast this piece of buckeye burl, and it's part of a root burl, but it's a nice blonde piece. If I were going to cast that and I put it in resin that I used dyes, what's going to happen, because the wood is unstabilized, it's going to soak up a lot of that dye and it's going to discolor the wood. So when I get down to turning everything, you're not going to be able to see as well where the wood starts and the resin ends. You're not going to have a distinct line like we want. You're going to have a little bit of color fade, a little bit of bleeding. So if you're going to use dyes, I would suggest stabilizing it. And that's what I did with this piece. The problem, though, with stabilizing is now you need to re-clean it, because you're going to have all this extra juice that cooks out of it, because this stuff will expand as you cook it and cure it. I thought in this case that I would put it in the oven with the points down, because I thought everything would drip out of it in a way, so I wouldn't have too much resin in the peaks, but it did just the opposite. What happened was the resin started to fill some of these voids because it was coming out there. Gravity was kind of helping it. So what I recommend is, if you're going to stabilize something, when you go to cure it, put the peaks up. That way, most of the moisture is going to fall down. It's going to cook downward, and you're not going to have all of the buildup that you would if you left it upside down.
And the flat side is easier to sand.
Oh, absolutely. Because let's face it, the flat side is going to get turned away anyhow. We don't care what's on that. I mean, I'll clean it up because it'll sit in the mold a little easier, and you just drop it on a belt sander and that stuff's gone.
Yep.
Well, and to your earlier point about dyes, sometimes you won't notice it until you actually turn it.
You won't. Absolutely.
Because you'll look at it on the outside, and the blank will look beautiful to you.
Yep.
And then when you start to turn it, you'll see speckles, or you'll see blotch fading or blotch colors that have come in, because that flow through is not consistent by any means. It's wherever the capillaries will take it.
You're not going to have the distinct color between your resin and your wood.
Yeah,
it's going to bleed.
Isn't
Now,
that more pronounced when you're dealing with this type of wood, which is porous, as opposed to, say, a maple?
well,
If you took a maple and put it in
it
there,
wouldn't go as far in maple, but it will
Right.
still absorb it.
Will it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Any of your woods that we're using, because they're going to be dry, you're going to cook them, you're going to warm them up. So
Mhm.
that's going to basically open all the pores, pull the moisture out of it, and it's just looking for something to soak in.
Okay.
So that can be an issue. I don't stabilize everything, and as we move forward tonight, I'll show you my solution to not stabilizing everything, because how many of us want to sit? First off, I don't want to stabilize everything I turn. I know not everybody has access to a tank, and honestly, it's a couple of days process, and it just sucks. That's the
Very
easiest
good.
way.
That's exactly what it does. It sucks all the stabilizers.
I love the results, but I don't want to spend days soaking something in resin and then wiping it all off and first baking it in the oven and then soaking it and then baking it again and then cleaning it again. It's a lot of work.
Well,
So
time consuming.
I guess it all depends on the project, right? For a pen turner, we can get away with not stabilizing pen blanks. If I were going to turn something larger that I felt was really dry, say the Buckeye Burl, if I were going to turn a larger piece, I'd probably recommend stabilizing that. Box elder, Buckeye, a lot of those woods that really dry out, you're probably going to want to stabilize it. So after we get that done,
John, would you stabilize Australian hardwoods?
Never. It's pointless. So if you're looking at some of your woods that are very dense, like the red mallee, the brown malees, the bacotes, the rosewoods, there's no reason to stabilize them unless when you pick them up, you can pull pieces off of them. If they're brittle, or they're really cracked like the Jarrah wood, then stabilize them and fill them cracks. But anything that has natural oils or is a very heavy or dense wood, there's no point in stabilizing it, because you're never going to get the juice that far into it anyhow. It's going to be blocked by all the oils in the wood.
One of the things you'll find out if you try to stabilize any Australian hardwood, real hardwood, the weight of the piece will not change noticeably unless you find a way that's better than the ways that I've ever found. And the weight of the piece just does not change. If the weight doesn't change, you haven't penetrated it with the solution. So
and you haven't pulled enough oil out of it then, right?
That's right.
Because if you're going to stabilize something, you're going to put it in the oven and you're going to cook it, and you're basically removing all the moisture in that piece, because you have to have all the moisture out, or the juice, the resin won't penetrate the wood fibers. So you weigh it, and then you put it in the oven, and every hour you take it out and reweigh it, and the weight keeps going down on that piece of wood. After the time that it cooks for an hour and I reweigh it and it hasn't dropped any, then I know it's dry. some of these hardwoods, yeah, you're not going to see a difference because it's just too dense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly correct.
and again, you're just wasting time and resources and money and buying all that stuff to try to stabilize something that really doesn't need to be. So
And if you're new to this, what would you recommend? But starting out with like maples and stuff like that, right?
yeah, starting out, I would say you can get away with not stabilizing them unless it's something really punky and you can pick at it and crumble it in your hands. Then I wouldn't turn it. But most maples, unless it's been laying outside for a while and it's all spalt and just falling apart, I wouldn't stabilize any of the maple that I have here on the table. There's no reason to. It might be dry, but it's hard and it's secure enough to turn. So remember, you're not turning, if you were turning a bowl or something larger, you might have to worry about that. But we're turning pens. And when we put the brass tube in that blank, we're giving it a spine, we're giving it strength, and that's going to hold it all together. So we can get away with turning things that larger turners wouldn't be able to because of it not being stabilized.
And actually, everything that you're talking about goes to the pretty much from size from pens to small handles and even smaller pepper
bottle
mills.
stoppers, yeah, all that stuff.
Right. So,
anything like you say, it all depends on its use. But as long as you're not trying to hollow it out, I don't see a problem with not stabilizing it. So once we get it all cleaned up and we're going to cast it, we've got it dry, then we have to figure out first off what our project's going to be, right? I try to sit down and I look at a piece and I say, all right, what am I going to do with this? What's my end goal? Obviously, we have a couple of options, and one of them is to just place this in the mold and pour over the top of it. But you have to look and see how thick some of this stuff is and realize that you want this division in the middle of your blank. So what you're going to have to do then is, if it's too thick, like the center of this, you're going to have to pour a blank probably 3/4 of an inch above, 1/2 inch to 3/4 above the highest point, which means you're going to waste a lot of resin down here in these thinner areas. So that's something you're going to look at and say, all right, how much am I really going to have to do? Because once I cut this, am I going to turn all the resin off if I drill it down the center? I might have resin here, but when I drill it down the center, this whole half, I'm just going to have wood. So a lot of times I'll cut a blank and figure out how to orientate it. So that way I'm more consistent with the depth of the resin and I'm not wasting resin down here in the thin area that's going to be this tall because I needed it thicker or deeper up here. So an option is either one. If it's thin enough, you can lay it in the mold and pour resin over it, which is what I did with this. This was a small piece of burl, and I laid it in the mold, poured the resin over the top of it, demolded it, and when I cut them apart, this is basically what you're going to get in your contrast. You're going to get, obviously as you turn this round, all of that's going to change, right? Because you're going to start to open up areas where you can't see it because it's a square block. But what that'll give you is basically wood and resin throughout the whole project. So once you drill up the center of this, that entire pen is going to show both wood or resin. So that's one option, and I like that option. I like to have it almost like a river flowing down my pen. That's what I prefer, but not all blanks are going to let you do that. So the other option is to take this piece and cut them into 7/8 or 1 inch. Honestly, I usually go a little higher, a little thicker than what I need. So I like to do a 1 inch cut because after I cast it gives me room to kind of pick and choose where I cut the blank and where I get the best character. So I don't mind cutting 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch off of a blank to get something that I was trying to achieve. But it's going to come down to the size of the wood. So you want to maximize how much you can get out of it. But an option then is to cut a piece basically off of that thickness and then turn it on its side in the mold and have another one coming in this way. And that's kind of what I did with these. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to have wood on top and bottom and then resin flowing through the middle. And that's basically what I did on this pen. So the end result is really how you're going to pour it. Anything to add yet?
No, I think you're going perfect.
No? Really? Nothing?
Nothing.
Wow.
I got nothing.
So the fun stuff, well, I did this one clear just so you can kind of see. And it gives you an idea of orientation. As you look at the blank, you realize And this, I was actually going to make a small little dish out of it because I wanted to have transparency so that I could see the live burl. And this isn't something that you would do with a pen because you'd see the brass tube in there. But it shows you basically the orientation of the wood in the resin, because when you cast this with mica powders, you're not going to be able to see the wood until you cut it. So this kind of gives you an idea of when you cut this, you want to make sure you mark your mold so that you're not cutting it this way, because you're not going to get resin in all the pieces. You want to make sure that you're cutting it the right direction. So with this one, what I did, obviously, if it were going to be solid resin or a resin that you couldn't see through, I would mark my mold up here and put an arrow up and down. So I know before I demold this, I'm going to put a line on this blank so that I make sure I mark it the right direction when I cut them apart. Because that's something I've gotten blanks out before. If I were casting this and it was all red resin, well, honestly, I pour it deeper than my wood because I want to make sure I've got enough resin there. So I always pour a little more than I need. But if that were all red, I couldn't see where the wood is. So by making your marks on your mold before you take it out of the mold, at least then you can put the marks on the blank so you can see exactly where to cut.
Well, the nice thing too is now you know whether you can use that for a full-size pen or Sierras or
Sure.
any of that area.
All right. So
Or diamond knurls.
So let's kind of talk about to stabilize or not stabilize. For this demo, I did a little playing around, and I started a pen, and I wanted to make sure that, and as Ed noted earlier, we were discussing this. This process has been around forever because stabilizing wasn't always an option for us without having to send it out to a company somewhere and have it stabilized and then wait for it to come back. So prior to having all that stuff accessible for our own shops, what we would do is saturate it with thin CA. And then the ultra thin stuff come out, which makes it even easier. So before you invest all the money in buying the stabilizing pot and buying the pumps and buying the cactus juice or whatever juices you're going to use, the stabilizing resins, try this. Take your wood. Where'd my other piece go? Right in front of me. All right, take your wood and cast it like I did this, dry. Just make sure it's good and clean. Pour your resin. Now, I used mica powder on this so that it wouldn't bleed into the wood. And basically what I started out with...
You want to switch to the other camera?
He's doing all right.
Okay.
What I started out with was a piece of Buckeye Burl. And I like Buckeye Burl because I love the gray and the colors in it, the tones that you get, and the swirls with the eyes. But the problem is, if you've ever turned Buckeye Burl, especially the root burl, it gets dry. I mean, and I'm not going to say drier is better because then somebody over there is going to make a comment. But it is a very dry, a very porous wood. So it's ideal to stabilize it, but we all know my reasons for not. And so what I did in this case was I cut my blank after I cast it in the mold. And real quick, I guess I skipped a part. How do we cast it in the molds? What are our options? So real quick, I'll spell out a few options for you. Obviously, the HDPE molds are out there. You can make your own. You can purchase them. I know Ed and Dawn have them here at Exotic Blanks on all different sizes, whatever you're going to make, whether they be the stoppers, the bottles. They've got designated molds in silicone and in HDPE for all your casting needs. Another option is 3D printing, which is something I started doing a while ago. And I like it because if I need a specialty mold, I'll just run downstairs, I'll CAD it up in Tinkercad. I can print it out in about 20, 30 minutes. And it might cost me 10 cents to make it. And it's just basic PLA. I print it to the shape I need. And this is what this is. It started out like this. I just printed a little, basically a rectangular box. And all I wanted to do is fit my blank.
What are the dimensions on the wall? A couple mil?
Yeah, I think it's a 2 mil.
Yeah, okay.
Roughly. So what I do, I'll print and I leave the bottom open because I want to be able to see through it. I could print the box with the bottom in it if I were just going to pour resin and turn this off. but it's a little challenging to get your blank out if there's a bottom on it. So initially what I had done is cut the bottoms off of them. And I thought, well, that's just silly. Why even print the bottom on it? It's just taking more time and it's wasting material. So now I print them open and I make sure that my blank fits in it the way I want. Then what I do is I take clear packing tape. Now in the beginning I was talking, geez, couple years ago, we were using tuck tape. And tuck tape is a construction grade for all the house sheathing and all that stuff where they're putting the insulation in the house wrap and whatnot. And it works great. It's just a little more expensive. So you can pick up a cheap roll. This is Uline, cheap roll of clear packing tape. And what I do, I line the inside of the mold if I'm going to use it over. And then I take it and I put it on the piece of wood, which is my bottom. And I lay it on there and I take the old handy dandy hot glue gun and I just run a bead all the way around it. And as you can see, this one still has the bead on it. And basically what it was hot glued down to this piece of wood, and I cast everything right in there. So because this is lightweight, it's not stabilized, it's not heavy, it's going to float. So I put a couple drops of hot glue on the wood, and I stick it in the mold, and I hold it down for a little bit to make sure that the glue sets. And once the glue's cooled, it's not going anywhere. So then I basically put that in my pressure pot.
Is it okay to interrupt before?
Yeah.
One thing that you do have to make sure of is orientation of the blank when it went into it. If you have a pocket underneath.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
You want to talk about that real quick?
So, you're going to look at your blank and figure out where's the solid side of it. And in this case, the bottom is all solid. So that's the one I want down. I wouldn't want to put it with the solid side up because now I have to get resin under it and in the nooks and crannies. And if that were an issue, what I would do, I'd put it on the sander or on the lathe of my chuck and turn it round. And I'm just going to use one of these casting tubes, push it in there, and then pour my resin. Now, it's obviously going to be a chore getting it down here. But if I just have a live edge, I'm able to cast above that live edge just fine in the vertical casting rack.
And I've actually had some luck with if I have enough voids on both sides of pouring just a little bit of resin in the mold that I'm going to use, and then push
the nice thing is if you push that in there and you cast the top of it, then you can just leave excess on the bottom, take the cap off the bottom, put it on the top, turn it over, and pour the bottom up, if you have live edge on both ends.
Yeah, I would say more like pepper mills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I may pour a little bit of resin on the bottom, take my piece, push it down into it, and then that way it'll fill it all up.
Yeah.
Because I can't cast them around a pepper mill mold, and we'll talk about that a little
So,
bit.
and what you may have to do in that case, if you have voids on the bottom and you pour your resin in this chamber first,
Just a little.
just so that you know it's in them voids, what you may have to do then is come over the top with a scrap piece of wood and set it on there and then tape over that. That way it'll hold everything down.
Yep.
And a lot of times I'll use bamboo skewers in these harder molds and I'll wedge them on the sides. That way it's going to get turned off anyhow, and it's just enough to hold everything in place.
I just picked up shims at Home Depot, and I just got a box of shims.
Yeah.
Because if I can reuse them, that's great. If not, I'll just turn them off, and I don't care.
Yeah,
Because sometimes on the bigger molds, they'll get stuck.
Yeah, most
there's
of the
no
time,
easy way to
you're
get
not going to be able to reuse something. And also, I'll take a scrap to the bandsaw and just cut some shims and wedge them in there. Just be careful if you're 3D printing them. You don't want to shim too hard because you're
Right.
going to crack your plastic. So once everything is taped and sealed with the hot glue gun, I put that in my pressure pot. I put a 125 watt light bulb over for about 20 minutes while I'm mixing the resin and getting it to temperature. And then I pour it, chamber it up, pressurize it. I know I see a lot of people say, well, don't be concerned about how aggressive you are mixing and you don't want to introduce air. That was old school. That's what we thought 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Don't introduce any more air than you have to because you got to get it out. Well, we're using pressure pots. Resin creates gas as it cures. It's going to add its own air bubbles to the mix. So as long as you cast it under pressure, you're going to compress all that air. You're never going to see it. So I'm going to shoot a video here coming up, and I'm going to get real aggressive with resin because I've had people say, well, don't use this or don't use a drill to mix your resin. I'm mixing 600 to 1,000 grams of resin at a time. My hand's going to get pretty tired. I'll never get it mixed in time if I'm doing it by hand.
Well, isn't it fair? One of the things that I see when people ask me about casting and stuff like that, one of the things that I see most often is things that are undermixed.
Yeah.
You'll see clouds, you'll see
Yep.
wisps, you'll see a lot of stuff of things that, and you'll see a weird inconsistency of the color as it moves up and down. And people will ask me all the time, what did I do wrong?
Mhm.
And most of the time I'll say, and you and I have had this, where same couple people, and we'll tell them that, at least we believe it's in the mix.
It's definitely a mixing issue. Well, let's face it.
John,
Yes, go ahead, Dean.
Bone Crusher asked a question. You talk a lot about the casting and stuff. What about olive wood or other
I
oily woods?
Yeah, you have to be real careful when you're casting any oily woods. It can be done, but what I would recommend, get you some acetone and scrub the heck out of that wood. Get all that oil off the surface. But it's all doable. You just have to make sure that the oils are removed from the wood before you pour the resin, because it's going to create a weak spot, because it's not going to want to bond to it. But it can be done. The problem is if you heat it in the oven to warm it up a little bit, then you're going to have to wipe it off again, because oil's going to come out of that wood as you get it warm. So right before you pour the resin, wipe it down real good with acetone, maybe 3 or 4 times. Keep switching the rag around so you're not just rubbing the oil that you removed anywhere else, right? Get a clean spot on the rag and rub it down some more.
So I
So
believe that was a question from Bone Crusher. So hopefully, Bone Crusher,
Yeah.
we answered your question.
yeah, because there's a lot of beautiful oily woods out
Yeah.
there that have natural voids that, just begging for resin. So I forget. I don't know where I was going with it, but I know at this point we've poured the resin. We've got everything in the tank. Once it comes out, what I do, I take a razor blade and I just score the edge of the base where the hot glue is, and grab it with channel lock pliers and pop it right off. Because the resin's going to stick to the tape that's on the wood. So once you separate the glue bead from the bottom, it's going to pop right off. Then what I do is I go to the bandsaw and I just cut through the sleeve that I printed after the resin cools. If you do this while the resin's still hot, you're going to deform your mold. But once the resin's cool, I'll pop it in there and then just separate it, and it pops right off. And now I can put a piece of tape over this and reuse it again if I want. But again, it cost me, I think, like 12 cents to make it. So I'm not really concerned about that. But I'm not trying to talk you out of buying molds. I'm just telling you that if you're only going to do one and it's an odd size, you can get away with 3D printing. Obviously, if this is something you're going to do a lot of, invest the money in a quality mold. It's something that's going to hold up and make the job easier. And there's so many out there that you can pick from based on the results that you want to use, that you want to get. Another option, and this is what I started with before I had my 3D printer. I'd take scrap wood and I'd cut it to the length that I wanted, and I'd just take packing tape. I actually had a bigger bottom, but I'd take packing tape and basically tape this together and make the box. I'd line all of the inside edges with packing tape, and then I'd lay them out and I'd tape them together, fold it up into a box, and do the same thing. Hot glue it down to the bottom of my board, covered in tape, pour my resin in it, and it's a great makeshift mold, and it's great for those odd sizes that you're not quite sure how you're going to cast without ruining or wasting a bunch of resin.
And the trade-off is, on a lot of those, especially the wood ones, it's a one-time mold.
Right, exactly. It's going to be a one and done. But because you lined it with tape, you're going to be able to demold it very easily and reuse it if you need to. But I wouldn't want to do it every single time.
Vince asks, do you use mold release on your 3D printed molds?
I don't, because I put packing tape on them. And here's the other issue. If I'm putting objects in that mold, whether it be worthless wood or another dried object, pine cones, whatever, I don't want anything to get in the way of that wood sticking to the resin. And I can't hot glue my wood to the bottom of that mold if there's mold release. It's not going to stick. It's going to float up and cause problems. So because it's packing tape, the packing tape will peel right off of your mold walls, and it kind of acts as mold release itself. And then you either trim it off your blank or peel it off. But there's no reason to use mold release over packing tape, unless it's just straight resin. If you're just doing a color cast, sure, you can use mold release. But I don't use, I have designated molds for that kind of stuff. So another option, obviously, you can wedge them in these single cavity molds. And it's great because you can get these in all different sizes and shapes depending on what your project is. And just make sure that you cut your blanks to where they wedge in there, right? And these aren't coming, silly me. They shouldn't come out on me. When that's a stabilized piece, so that's not going to float up any. But my orientation, if I turn it on its side, it is now not going to come out. So once you get everything in there, right, you're good to go. So,
And if I've ever had a problem, I've used the rubber band.
oh yeah, sure. Well, and I don't use these. This was the first mold I bought probably almost 20 years ago. I've had it forever, and I'm still using it occasionally. I mostly use it for thin blue line blanks because I can take scrap resin and pour in the chamber, pop it out later, run it across the bandsaw or the table saw and cut a groove, and then the next time I have leftover resin, add a little color to it, pour it down the groove, and I can put any color I want in the black blank. And now I've got the thin line blanks. But they're great for these one-offs with these little scraps because they're a pain to be gluing and sticking down in the molds and trying to remember, all right, where did it start and where did it stop? So when I divide those blanks out of a larger block, I want to make sure I cut it exactly in the right spot. So with something like this, even though my character that I'm going to introduce and my pouring technique is very limited, it is a great way to get some quick blanks without having to put a lot of time and work into it.
And if it's okay, I know I'm interrupting a lot, but another great use for those things are if you're making some of the bigger molds, like you're doing a pepper mill or something like that, and you have a small amount of resin left over. That's always those molds are perfect for pouring in. So I always have one or two of those sitting next to me.
Well,
even if I don't make a worthless wood one, I will use my resin.
And that's what I use these for.
Yep.
I've usually got a bunch of tubes cut with the plastic bottoms on them, sitting in a casting rack. So as I'm pouring larger things, if I've got the depth that I want in this mold, I don't want to throw all this nice red mica away. So what I start doing then is thinking, all right, what can I do? So I might take a little bit of this, pour aside, add some black to it to darken it up, and then pour it back into here. So when I drizzle it, I'm getting more color and swirl throughout it. But I've got a box now, probably almost the size of a large flat rate box, full of rods that I've cast with just scrap resin, that every now and then, if I just want to do something, pull one out and see what I get. So that's basically your options with molds, what you can do to orientate them. I mean, sky's the limit with this stuff, really. As long as you can wedge it in there and it's not going to float out, you can use cardboard. Take a cardboard box and a razor blade and a straight edge and cut you a long strip and fold it around your piece of wood and tape your edges, tape the inside of it, tape your edges, hot glue it down, and that'll work just fine because you just need it to hold the resin. So, anything else? Well, I'm done.
Well, bye, John. It's been great.
So, just because we're on the topic of molds, larger molds work just the same way. It doesn't mean these are just for pen blanks. You can cast any of these larger pieces depending on the block that you have. And in this case, I had this nice piece of Buckeye burl, and I thought it's too nice to just cut up and then cast individually because a larger piece, you can introduce more characteristic into your resin. You're very limited by how small your blanks are. If I were just going to pour one blank, there's not much I can do with this characteristic, right? I can either pour it this way or pour it this way. Now, if I'm pouring a larger block, I can crisscross it. I can hold it high. I can pour it over something. I can tilt the mold, pour it here. Sky's the limit. Dirty pours, flip cups, you name it, whatever you want to do. So the larger the mold, I feel the more fun I can have with what character I'm putting in that mold. And so with something like this, I would do it the same. I've printed the mold, bottom open, hot glued it down to a small piece of wood. I would set it out there, and I would put a little bit of glue on my bottom here, push it down to the very bottom to where it sticks. And once I know it's down there, I'm just going to warm it up. I don't have to go crazy with it because this is stabilized. It's not absorbing moisture, but there may be some humidity on it. So I'm just going to warm it up so that the resin doesn't pull away from it.
One quick question, you didn't cover it before. When you put it in the pressure pot, I've seen bizarre things on Facebook that you have to go to 120 psi, 80 psi.
Just
don't think
because
you
you're
and I do it. You've taught me differently.
just because your pressure pot will go to 80 pounds of pressure doesn't mean you have to go 80 pounds of pressure. I usually stay somewhere between the 50 and 55 range, and that's for things I'm trying to really compress and get in small nooks and areas. An average color cast, 40 pounds of pressure. There's no reason to go that high. It doesn't change anything. I've never had any visible air bubbles, and if you know the stuff that I make, I do a lot of clear casting. And most of my clear casts, especially my tubes, my tube on clear pen blanks, they're all between 40 and 50 pounds of pressure.
And are you going to talk about your casting material? This is Alumilite.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, what I would recommend if you're starting out, we always say this, there's no point in when you're first starting out buying 4 different kinds of resins. I recommend Clear Slow, Alumilite Clear Slow urethane resin. I know a lot of guys out there will grab the epoxies. I'm not an epoxy fan. I use them when I have to, but I like the urethanes because they'll fully cure in overnight, 24 hours. I don't have to wait 7 days to get beyond the flexibility. Although urethanes, they say, stick better. I've kind of put that to the test, and I don't find that to be the case. I've gotten just as well adhesion. In fact, a lot of times when I pour a clear cast in my vertical system in these clear plastic tubes, I will score the tube and pop it out. And what I found is, because it's easier for me to polish a blank, if I'm going to sell a blank, I want you to see what you're getting. So if I cast a nice watch part blank in this, the last thing I want is for this outside to be all kind of crudded over because I slop resin on the side or whatever. So the first thing I do is I cut a lot of these and demold them. And then I'm able to polish the actual clear blank so that you can see what you're getting. I have a hard time peeling this tube off of urethane resin.
Oh yeah.
But it peels right off of epoxy. So how does epoxy have a better bond, right? I don't understand that. People tell me, oh, epoxy sticks better. Well, I can peel this plastic tube right off of epoxy, but I can't do it off urethane. So I guess maybe it depends on what you're pouring.
And I've had challenges with epoxy, especially earlier on when doing this. Is as you turn them, you get to like softer spots, and you kind of have to let it.
Sure. Well, again, most epoxies will tell you it takes 7 to 10 days to fully cure.
Most people skipped it. Right. I've done with I know with Silmar, I know it sits in the pot 24 hours, but I can pretty much turn it almost immediately. Alumilite.
Yeah,
well, I'll let it go.
Your Silmar is going to be sticky for a day, the top surface, but you can cut that off and get to the hardness.
Silmar is a polyresin. When you're talking to people who don't necessarily know it, be clear about what we're talking about, please.
And so Silmar polyester resin is a different formula. It's basically the first resin that we had as hobbyists in the casting world. It was the first thing we had access to. And it's weird.
Stinks to the high heavens.
It does. It does. My wife will come home 5-6 hours after I pour, and she'll say, "Oh, you were casting today," because she can smell the polyester resin. And
no, I was actually going to get to I was going to get to that because I do use that for that. But then when I use Alumilite and the urethanes, it's completely different. I will usually demold them, if you will, and I'll pretty much let them sit another 12-24 hours before I actually get to any kind of turning.
You do a lot of larger casting. Do you find that when you're casting something that's 3 inches, do you have to change the pressure? Is it necessary to have more pressure because it's a bigger piece?
No, I don't find that. What I do is exactly the same thing John does. Is I will see, because I'm I hate to say it, I'm lazy. All my stuff is done with Alumilite Slow. Even my pen blanks, which I could go in with the original in the 90 minutes, I still cast them in the 4-hour stuff.
Well, that's the nice thing about Clear Slow.
Yeah, it's just
it's a catch-all. I always tell everybody, if you're just starting out into casting, don't worry about all the other stuff on the market. Start with Alumilite Clear Slow urethane resin, because you can cast everything from the smallest blank to the largest blank without any issues.
Guys, John Brian Katz says, I've done clear casts, put them in a drawer for 2 years at room temperature, and then they're yellow. Alumilite Slow. Want to talk about yellow a little?
Yep. Oh, yeah. So yellowing is that thing that as resin casts age, they turn kind of an amber color. And I don't care what the resin is, just about probably 98% of them are going to yellow. They're going to turn amber. But here's what a lot of guys don't realize. When you cast that blank, and you're looking at a solid blank, of course I don't have just a resin cast here, but when you're looking at a solid blank, say like a handle there, you've got an inch or more of resin that you're looking through. And if it's clear cast, the focus is what's in the resin, not the resin itself. But the problem is you're looking through an inch of resin, so if that resin starts to tarnish on you a little bit and starts to change a little amber, it's noticeable because the resin is so thick. As a pen turner, when we turn that down, we're looking at, what, an eighth of an inch? If that, at the thickest part, maybe if you've got a slight taper in the center of your Sierra, you might have an eighth of an inch or maybe a hair more in thickness. So as you remove all that layer, that thickness of resin, that amber that was so obviously seen is now really hard to tell because you're looking through such a small, minute part of resin. So,
And I have one that I do for part of my demos. Is I've got the same label cast that I did in Silmar and one in Alumilite, and you can notice the difference only when it's sitting next to each other.
Mhm.
I don't think the natural eye, but I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
It will yellow. We all agree with
the
that.
background makes a difference too. If it's a label cast and it's a white background,
Yes.
you're going to notice it. If it's an image, a photograph, it's not going to be as noticeable once it's turned down. But in that raw state, unturned, it's so thick, it's very obvious.
And another thing too, and I know Don gets this question a lot too, is especially when you get Alumilite and one of it may be a little bit more of an amber
Or one of it
yellow
will
color.
be.
Yeah, they're a little bit more
and
of an amber.
it's gotten
yellow
more
color.
noticeable.
I still, for my
lately.
color casts, you don't notice it when you put it in, and,
No.
and once you're done with it, you will not notice.
Well,
So go ahead, John, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, even with this, I purposely added just some light blue to the tint because I didn't want to have the light color, the yellowish color of the box elder burl, and then as the resin got old and aged, I didn't want that to be all noticeable because if it were against this yellowish wood and it turned yellow, it was going to be very noticeable.
Mhm.
So I thought I'm going to add just a drop of blue and dye. A little bit of dye goes a long way. So honestly, the amount of blue that I had in this was less than a match tip.
If there's one point to take away from tonight, that statement is probably one of the biggest. The dye,
you can always add more.
Oh my gosh.
Start with very little. I mean, like a toothpick. If you just want to lightly tint it, start with a toothpick, dip it in the dye, and swirl it in there, mix it up, see what you have. So, like I said, they all yellow. I know some claim they have UV qualities, and some are better than others. But sooner or later, you're going to notice that they all yellow. But once you turn it down, it's really not that noticeable. You keep that in the back of your mind. Don't discredit a blank that you may have sitting around because it looks like it's old. Turn it and see what it looks like. You're going to be surprised. So,
Time
we
check,
kind of talk.
guys.
Go ahead, Dean.
Time check. We're running up on an hour.
Okay.
You want to do a giveaway?
Yeah, let's do a giveaway.
All right, give me a minute.
I just kind of wanted to pop that out just so you can kind of see this is what your blank would look like after you cast it. They're going to pop out as long as you line everything with tape.
And is that one just the nice thing about that one is that did you put a little bit of black into it?
Yes. So that's
I love that swirl pen.
that's red mica.
And Dean, can you go to the other camera just for this one?
I'll have to move that out of the way. That's
Right where that hole is.
Yeah, to see some of that depth of color that you got on that.
that's a red mica, and what I did was I took basically about 90%, well, maybe about 80% red, and then I took a little bit off the side and I just tinted it with black mica. And then once the resin hit about 110 degrees, 110, 115, I poured the black into the center of the cup of the red and then took a stick just to move the black around a little bit and then poured it. And as I poured it, I just kind of let the black swirl out and fall where it did. But I just kept alternating my direction. And that's where you start to see some of the low spots in the swirl. But that's the gravity that adds all this swirl and color. As long as you let your resin get up there around 100, between 100 and 115, depending on the size of your mold and the amount of resin and the amount of colors you're pouring, That's where your character is going to come from. If you pour it too soon, you're just going to get a color with no movement in the mica. And if you wait too long, you're not going to get it all out of the cup.
And speaking of personal experience, and when I was learning this years and years and years ago, that's also where you will notice that if your block of wood had moisture on it, you'll see little bubbles as it meets the resin.
Right.
That's where you'll see it more noticeably. So
Okay,
Anthony,
I'm all set.
well, hang on. Let's get to Anthony's question. Anthony, are you talking about the Nashville class? And if so, we'll talk about it at the end if that's okay with you. But you can also send an email to sales@exoticblanks.com and ask about the Nashville class.
Sure.
Ed is going to help us with some of that stuff, so I can get you more details on it. But if you're talking about the Nashville class, while we take a quick break before Dean does his thing, John and I have been asked by Powermatic to do a demo down in Nashville. It's not a demo; it's a hands-on class. It's the first full weekend, right? In
August.
It's like the 9th,
7th, 8th, and 9th, I
7th,
believe.
8th, and 9th. And it's going to be down in Nashville. You can get most of the information from me. So send me an email or send it to Ed. If you sign up now before the end of the month, it's 10% off. But it's 20 people in the class. It'll be hands-on. We're going to do half of it in casting, half of it in turning. And Ed, you're going to be supplying a lot of the blanks. A lot of the component sets and everything else. So it'll be a great event, and it'll be fun to be down in Nashville.
10% off by the end of which month? April or May?
I think it's definitely I think it's middle of May. I think it's middle of May. It's May 15th.
Because we're
Yeah,
right on
I
the
remember
ball.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're running out, aren't we?
So you can either contact me if you have my email address. That's great. If not, contact Ed and
And we'll be happy
I'll
to
make sure I follow it up. Oh, someone signed up earlier today.
Revo.
Oh, look, Revo will finally get to meet face to face.
Nice.
Do you validate airfare for airfare?
I don't know, Anthony. I don't know where you're going to be coming from, but I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to this as something that'll be fun to hang out with people down in Nashville and do this. Plus, I want to try Nashville hot chicken.
All right. Does somebody want to put the blank in the camera?
Is it okay if John? You want to do it?
That's
So
it.
here's the giveaway.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
It's a nice handle blank.
Actually, as long as I'm not on camera. Let's see.
Any comment, John? Snowman is the giveaway keyword.
All right. Snowman.
And that's a Dawn blank, right?
Yes.
Dawn is spectacular casting.
Dawn is the reason I started casting almost 20
I
years
think for
ago.
most of us, yeah.
Yep. And that was before you could just go to Exotic Blanks and buy everything you need. That's-
She found an awful lot of sources before they were sources.
yeah. Well, it worked out well. To this day, I still have quite a collection of Dawn blanks that I don't part with, and I use for special donations and whatnot.
Someone's nominating Dawn to do a demo.
I
Good luck with
agree.
that.
It's an interesting
Maybe
idea.
Dawn will do next month's casting here.
Yeah.
Fat chance.
But we could do it like Home Improvement, where we'd have a big fence,
Yeah.
and all you'd see is Dawn from the eyes up.
Yeah.
I'll call her Wilson.
Let's reassure you that this is not the end of the show.
No, my goodness.
There's going to be
We haven't even got to the
turning coming up very shortly with Mark. So as
It's
you
actually going to
get
be
in-
John. John's going to turn the bottom half of his.
top half?
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, and then time permitting. So just so you guys know what's going to happen coming up in the next hour, John's going to do a little bit of turning. We're going to talk a little bit about finishing on the pen, and then time permitting, I'm going to talk about doing a couple semi bigger projects like pepper mills. So this is a pepper mill that's half wood, half acrylic that's been cast. We'll also talk about doing some of these handle type items where you can bring some color into your casting into some of the bigger projects.
So I real quick, I just want to comment because somebody made a comment about how they're afraid to sell a pen if it's going to yellow in 2 years.
Oh, okay, go here, please.
When you turn that blank down, if your blank's a year or two old and you see the yellow in it and you turn it down, you'll know. It really comes down to your background. Like I said, all yellow, all resins are going to kind of get that dingy-ish yellow to it. But if your background isn't white, you're never going to notice it. So the guys that are doing label casts on white backgrounds, you're going to notice it. It's just not going to be a bright, vibrant white like it was. It may just be an off-white or an antique white. But if you're putting something over the top of color, over the top of other objects,
you'll never know.
Snake skins, whatever, you're not going to notice it because the resin is so thin. The focus is on what's in that resin. You're never going to notice it. It's just like adding a little bit of color to clear resin. It's still transparent, but you're never going to notice the amber in it because the color absorbs that. It's the same principle with your backgrounds. So as long as you're not putting it on a white background.
I think this is something that under complete transparency, you should know. But, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. I've been at art shows for probably the last 15, 18 years. And white backgrounds, you will notice it. But the color backgrounds and any of this color casting, you will never notice it.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. And yeah, mica powders, you're never going to see a discoloration in a mica powder blank because the colors take away from that. They hide all of that. So it's not strong enough to overpower any of your colors in your resin. So it's really only just a clear cast issue.
Thank you, Bob.
Announced?
Yeah, one more minute.
Yep.
please.
Oh, okay,
Give
one
us
more minute.
A couple more
Okay.
people
So
coming in.
so as the snowmans all come in, what we're going to do here, I want to show you that you don't have to stabilize one of the softest, most porous woods out there, and that's Buckeye burl. In this instant, I took a blank, and as you can see, it's very dry. You can see how rough it is here, and I could probably scratch that a little bit. It's not falling apart, punky, but it's pretty dry. So what I did was I used ultra thin CA, the teal bottle, the Glue Boost ultra thin, and I saturated it, and I let it soak in. And then I basically gave it a shot of glue dry, and I turn a little bit. And once I started to expose the raw wood again, I'd saturate it again. And I did that twice just to get it down to a nice smooth area here. And you can see there's a nice shine, a nice smooth area that isn't all dry and chewed up. But again, it takes a little bit of time, a little extra glue, sharp tools. But you don't have to stabilize everything. And I'll show you basically, That's
actually something I know when we were working with Glue Boost, when he wasn't sure what that ultra thin would be used for.
Right. Stabilization
you started to do it, and
yes,
instant stabilization.
Absolutely.
It really made a big difference.
Especially if you take a piece of wood this size, and this is a little over 3/4 of an inch thick, and you turn it down, well, you know how much meat's left on the bone of a brass tube when you make a pen out of it, right? Very little. So there's no reason to have to stabilize this entire piece of wood just to turn it and leave it on the shop floor. So what I like to do is I'll turn it down close, saturate it a few times in the process, and you're not going to want to, if it's a hybrid, you're not going to want to do a lot of sanding on it to get it to shape, because again, it's sandpaper, not shaping paper. And what will happen if you over sand the blank to get it down there, your resin is harder than the wood, so you're going to start leaving high spots where the resin is, and you're going to start removing wood, and your blank's going to be wobbly or out of round. So what I like to do is pretty much cut it to size, saturate it with CA as I go through the process, and then my final saturation, I'll go ahead, if I need to, I'll go back with a skew and just lightly smooth everything out, and then I'll sand it and make sure it's the shape I need, if I need to fill in any little voids or whatnot. But if I were to place this on a table with a blank that was stabilized, The only way that you're going to tell that it wasn't is by the weight, because a stabilized blank's going to weigh a little more.
And I'll tell you from a turning perspective, I know Ed, a skew would be great. I mean, that's the optimal tool for using it. But without that skill, if you are going to use something like carbide, the negative rake cutter helps a lot because you're just not nearly as aggressive on it.
Right.
And so that softer wood, the negative rake cutter, you can't be that aggressive by design.
Well, these things are all, you go back 25 years when we were doing a lot of the beginnings of this, there was no stabilizing. As John said, it was something that you sent out to northern Wisconsin and it came back stabilized, but you didn't have it in the house. So if you wanted to do any kind of punky wood, it was just a matter of taking CA, because CA was out there, and use that to reinforce your blank, and you reinforced it as you turned. So it's not a new concept, guys. It's one of those things that has kind of fallen by the wayside because stabilizing is certainly easier.
Well, I would say easier, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's still a lot of work. It's lengthier, but it's obviously more stable.
Well,
It's a
and
guarantee- you'll get
if
a
you have
guarantee.
all this stuff lined
Yes.
up across there,
Just bring it to Ed.
it's very simple. I've got to put up pots over there. So basically, if you've got all the equipment and you don't have to spend much time at it, it's a couple minutes a day. But generally speaking, your ability to use CA, if you're only going to do 1 or 2 pens, there's no logic to buying all the stuff that you need for stabilizing.
No.
And stabilizing is not a science. There are times that you put a whole bunch of stuff in there and it comes out and it just didn't take. So yeah, this is interesting information that you should get to know, but more important, deal with the advantages of the concept and don't worry so much about the mechanics. Either any way you do it, that's a beautiful piece of wood and resin, and you can arrive there with or without stabilization. Okay.
Dean, you want to announce your winner? I know you posted it, but
We posted it, but in case you didn't see it, Eric Brown was our winner, and he's here and knows he's got it.
all
So
right.
you guys can move on to the next thing.
All right. So, anything you want to add, Mark?
No, did you catch the last question?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
So I will answer that question as I move here forward, just to give you an understanding. What I did in this process, Dean, do you want to go to the close-up camera real quick, just so they can kind of see what the project is? So this is the project. I took a piece of Buckeye burl that had some nice inclusions like this piece, and I basically cast it. And so I've got these nice blue sapphires coming out, and I have the top now, the cap to it right here, and it's basically the same thing. We've got some blue coming through. There's my favorite side. So what I also did, if you haven't noticed, I took the blue titanium diamond knurl roller ball, and I swapped the center band out with the antique silver because the blue matches the resin that I used. And I also knocked out the finial. Yeah, if you can see that, if that's going to fall over. But I knocked out the finial. There you go. And that's going to be the top of the cap. So this way it allows me to have some contrast. I don't have to make a custom finial. Sometimes I'll opt to turn out a finial and a center band. But in this case, the blue titanium was pretty enough that it really made a quick result. Thank you, Ed.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I didn't have to put as much time into this blank. So, okay, Dean, go ahead and pull me back to the front. So what I did, I started out with this piece of wood, and I drilled my hole for it. Now, before I epoxy my tube in, would you hand me the teal bottle just so they can see what it looks like? Should be yep. This is the ultra thin. Now, this is also a fill and finish. It's the Glue Boost Ultra Thin Fill and Finish, so it will work as a finish as well. If you have this is what I would use. If you've got the red label, which is just the Ultra Thin, but it's not a finish, that will work just fine for stabilizing the blank, but I would use the fill and finish on the final surface to get a nice a nice finish on the blank. So what I would do, I drill my hole, and before I epoxy my tube in there, I want to make sure I give the inside of this blank some strength. Because remember, when we turn all these outer edges away, what we're left with is what's on the just hugging the inside of this hole. So I would take this glue. I'm not going to do it over your table, Ed, but
Thank you.
I would take this glue and I would put the bottle in the hole, and I would rotate the blank as I'd put drops, and I would watch them roll down and soak in. I would do that 3 or 4 times until the glue stopped soaking in, and then I would spray it with a little bit of glue dry, and then I'd spin it around, and I'd do the same at this end because I want to saturate the entire hole, and I want that glue to soak from the hole outward to our outer surface as much as it can, and that's basically giving my blank strength.
You have not had that come through and hit your fingers?
So, would you believe yes?
Yeah, I believe, yeah.
I have
that's
glued
what-
my fingers to these blanks more times than I care to comment. It will not soak through the edges as quickly as it may run out the bottom or the top and get on the side. So,
He just likes to tell his doctor he just stabilized his hand.
yes,
He likes to
I'm very
stabilize.
stable.
He likes to stabilize your skin.
Yes. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll wear a nitrile glove. That way, if the glove sticks, I can pull my fingers
That's fine.
away and the glove sticks to the wood that I'll turn off later.
And
But
does it start to smoke?
it will if you leave it there long enough.
Okay, so
You're talking about my fingers, or
no,
you
no, I'm talking about the wood.
Yes.
Just so when it happens, first of all, it'll start to smoke,
yes,
and it'll make a smell that's a little
not as bad,
acrid.
not as bad. It's not like a paper towel smoke.
Okay.
You'll still get some smoking coming out of the blank because that glue gets hot as it cures, and you'll hear it kind of sizzle. If it crusts up on you, there might be a little bit of moisture in there. But here's the problem. When you go to put your tube in now, you've got that glue. It's not going to fit, right? It's going to get hung up real quick. So because the inside of that hole is hard, you can re-drill it if you want. Normally, I just take a file, put it in here, rotate the blank, because all I'm going to do is knock down the wood fibers that expanded and stood up as the glue hardened. I'm not trying to make the hole any bigger than it needs to be. All I want to do is make it smooth enough so that the tube slides in and out.
That's a great technique, even for something that you didn't stabilize. On
Yes.
the inside.
Oh, absolutely.
Always test fit that tube as it goes in, because especially on something that's resin, if I've drilled it and my bit was a little dull and I generated a lot of heat, when I pull it up, that hole will want to contract just a little bit.
Yep.
And that's a great technique to know for everything you do. And I'll be honest, I don't always do it. And when do I not do it? That's when I remember, God, I wish I would have done it.
Sure. Now with blanks that are unstabilized, I'll drill these on the lathe because I find it a little more accurate. If I do it on my drill press and I'm holding it in a clamp down here, a lot of times my clamp will slide a little bit or the table might turn on me a hair. So as I'm coming down on it, it's easy to get that hole a little out of round. So if my blank is in my chuck, it's not moving, my drill bit is stationary, just moving forward, this blank is turning, I'll get a nice hole, nice and straight. It's going to drill very quick and simple because your wood is dry. But again, once you pour all your CA in there and you get it all nice, then I would take my 2-part epoxy and I would epoxy that tube in. And I use the 2-part epoxy because it's flexible and it will allow that tube to go in without curing too quickly. Because remember, we've sprayed a little bit of glue dry in there to harden that ultra thin. So now if I were to put CA on this tube and put it in there, well, it's hitting the surface where that glue dry is, and you're going to create a reaction, and you're not going to get the tube all the way in. So, of course, there's ways to fix that, but why create a problem that we just have to fix?
If it's a hybrid blank, like the blue one, are you painting it?
Yep. So, especially with the blue as the base, if you know me, you know I use more mica powder than probably 3 casts. I like to make sure that mica isn't going to be transparent. I would rather use more mica and know that you're not going to see the brass tube through it than try to conserve on mica powder and have something I'm not happy with. So I always add more than I probably need, but better safe than sorry. But I also spray paint my tubes, and in this case, I spray painted them blue because I wanted them to match my mica powder color. So I can, a lot of guys will do just black, white, gray, and that's fine if it works for you, but I always try to match the color of the mica because I just feel like it intensifies that vibrant color. I don't want to drown it out. I don't want to overtake it, subdue it, any of that. I just want to keep it nice and bright. So I always paint the tubes the same color as the resin. So in this case, I wouldn't paint the hole because, like I said, it's full of CA, and I'm just going to scrape it off and I put the tube in. So I'm going to spray paint the tube. Of course, I'm going to do that a day before I epoxy it in because I want the super glue to cure properly. So today, I would spray my tubes, and I will do that by basically putting a piece of wire through 4 or 5 tubes, and then I take a dowel rod along the wire and shove up in there so that they don't move. And then I just hang it on a hook and I spray paint them. So once it's good and dry after 24 hours, I take them off, and that's when I would drill my hole, put the glue in it, mix up my 2-part epoxy, and as I'm putting it in there, I'm turning it. And then once I get it in so far, because I'm going to take a bamboo skewer. Again, we're going to use a rat tail file just because I have it. I would take the bamboo skewer, mix up my epoxy, scoop it up, put it in the hole, and rotate it around the inside. And I'm going to do that at both ends so that the entire side of that hole are coated with epoxy. Then I'm going to take my tube, roll it in epoxy, and I'm going to roll it back and forth as I insert it. And as you do that, you're going to have epoxy come up the edge of your tube. And I always just take the stick and smear it up the brass. And then I take an insert tool and rotate it as I push it in. Once it's in, I let it sit, and it'll sit there for a day. After 24 hours of sitting there, I know that it's good and clean. I usually just take a pair of scissors, open them up so that it's forked open, take one of them in there, and just lightly scrape the inside of the tube to get the excess epoxy out. And then once that epoxy's out, I test fit my bushings to make sure everything fits okay. And one thing you have to be careful of, I always take the glue and I do the end grain as well because I want it to soak in. Because you don't want to have a bunch of tear outs when you start to sand or mill this down. So in this case, I actually milled this down just a little proud, because what I would do is after I turn it down, I'll put it on the sanding disc and bump it on the sander to get a nice smooth edge. But again, I want to make sure that I've got that end grain nice and saturated, because if the wood is soft, it'll tear out on you. And when you put your pen together, you're going to see those tear out marks in your blank.
I use that jig that you sell,
The V-block.
the V block, and there's one thing that I just love. That's a great tool for almost
so
a lot of this stuff.
How this works, you're going to use it with a disc sander. There's a couple out there, right? I know you have several different options to purchase. What I like about this one is I can quickly change this punch rod. It's a Harbor Freight punch set, and I just pick the rod that fits the tube, and this is set up for a Sierra in the lower junior. But it fits on there so that there's no wobble. And then once that's on there, I take my disc sander and I put my miter on backwards so that it's facing me and it butts up against this block. And so this is held against my miter, and I slide it into where this blank is about 1/8 of an inch from the belt sander or the disc sander, and I just slide it in a little bit and it faces the end. You don't want to push it in and lose a 1/2 inch off your blank, but you just want to clean the end, and it gives you a nice straight, because when you assemble your pen, you want your pieces to fit on there nice and straight, so when you hold them up, there's no gaps. And that's what this
I've
will
actually
do.
used that also post putting a CA finish on a pen, just if I got a little bit of CA over onto my Delrin bushings, there's a little bit of a kiss on there.
All right, so once we get all that epoxied in there, we got it ready to go, I'm going to take it to the lathe. So let's do that. Watch me blow this up. All right, so I've
It's your
got...
skill.
One thing I should notice also is if you look inside my tube, do you see that black line down there? So anytime I tube up my blanks, I always take and I put a mark on the top that says T for top, and on the bottom it says B. Inside, I always put these black lines in the middle. So once this is turned down, I know where my middle pieces orientate, because on a junior, both ends are the same bushing. On the lower, the center is a little bit prouder, but on the cap, they're both the same. So this will allow me to match up my grain.
Dean, is your audio okay with John that far away from the mic?
He said so far.
Yes, okay.
All right. All right, so what I've done already, I've already saturated this one time with CA glue so that it's soaked in nice and sturdy, kind of stabilize the outer edge. So now what I'm going to do is take a carbide cutter, and I'm just going to take the round cutter. I'm going to turn this up. I've got the lathe on, high speed. Dean, how's my volume? Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm not going to get aggressive and hog this down. All I want to do is start to remove. Take this.
Are you gonna be over stuff?
No,
It just looks like a video.
no, I don't. It's just a standard round. So normally I would do this down to remove those ends. Now, as you can see, we're back to dry wood. So what I want to do now is, this is where you have to be careful. I always take a piece of shop towel and lay underneath of it. I don't want to get glue down the edge of this blank because I don't want to glue it to the bushings because I'm not using Delrin bushings yet. All right, I'm using the standard metal junior top bushings. Let me get out one of these real quick. But I am going to use one of these whip tips because it helps me control the resin better, or the glue better. I'll push that on the bottle. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to slowly saturate this. And as you can tell how dry that wood is because it soaks right in. So I'm going to come in here and I want to make sure I get all these edges. And by using that whip tip, it just allows me to direct the glue where I want it without it getting too out of control. I'd rather take a little extra time to get it where I want it instead of gluing it to them bushings. So I don't get real crazy with the glue dry yet. I want to give this glue time to soak in. And once I realize that it's not soaking in anymore, it's starting to pool up a little bit, then I'll give it a shot. Because,
One
ahead.
thing to notice in this, when you have that mounted on the lathe like that, and you face it as John has, if you didn't face it well, if it's not square, your bushings are going to have gaps between the bushing and the blank. If you turn it like he's turning it here by hand and you see that there are no gaps, you know that you've squared it accurately, and so you can continue with some confidence that when you put it together with the components, everything's going to match up properly.
So it's a lot of back and forth taking the rag off, but it certainly saves on getting a bunch of glue on the bottom of your lathe. And this is nice and dry now, as you can see.
Really?
It just looks like
It looks wet.
Yeah, just because it's pooled up.
Yep.
So we'll come in here now, and if it weren't dry yet, you'll know because the tip of your carbide cutter is going to be all full of glue. And then you stick it in acetone and clean it.
And by the way, for the safety conscious, when John turned around and looked at me, he's wearing his safety glasses again.
Oh, yeah.
And John, I mean, you might want to mention that. I do have a bottle of fingernail polish remover.
Yep.
I always carry a bottle of fingernail polish remover, and anytime I'm doing any of that kind of, I'll just dip the tool in it at the end of the night, because not only do you get the glue on there, the glue will go into the little screw hole where you got to open it up.
Yep.
So I always have fingernail polish remover right at the end, and I'll always dip my carbide tools in the fingernail polish remover, both as I'm turning and then afterwards at the end of the night.
I buy acetone by the half gallon. I do.
I was just going to comment there.
Yep.
When you say fingernail nail polish remover, make sure it's the real acetone one, not the fake one. The fake one doesn't work as good.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know they had a fake one. Thank you, Dean.
Oh yeah, because you can get them with essential oils in them.
I-
You know, all that make you smell all pretty. I just want something to work.
I will tell you, I'm not as up on fingernail polish remover as I should be.
So normally I would spray my glue dry with the lathe running, but I don't want to do that in this case because I know I have excess glue. As you can see here, there's the smoke you're going to get if it rolls around. So it's not soaking in anymore. It's just because it's on resin, it's going to just layer there. But if I were to turn the lathe on to spray it, all that excess glue is going to come flying back at me. So I opt not to do that, and we're good and dry again.
So, the question comes up, John, how
Yes.
deep does the CA penetrate?
It's going to depend on the wood. It all depends on how porous the wood is. In this case, I bet it's a 64th of an inch or so. It's just so that you're not blowing anything up. You know, you're going to do it in layers, and we're probably 2/3 of the way down as far as we're going to go with this blank. So
When you take that first pass and you see that most of it is cleaned off, you know that you've gotten
yes,
some off.
some of the eyes will actually soak in more. But honestly, it isn't that you need it saturated the whole way down. It's just so that you can remove all the excess to get to the bottom. Because remember, there's glue already along the hole that's coming out, towards you.
You're finishing, at least you're going to do a CA
You're-
finish on it.
Exactly.
So
You're going to get a nice surface that's all soaked in. So, yeah, the trick isn't to have glue the whole way. It's
reinforce the wood.
reinforce it so you can turn it. So, and yeah, I got a little bit of wobble in this bushing. So what I would do now at this point is I would take it off and I would bump these ends on a disc sander. And what that would do is clean up anything that the pen mill may have left, any edges. I'm not going to worry about that now, but we're just going to kind of show you how I would finish this. And I can finish it at home, and what I'll do is I'll post it on IAP when it's all done. So,
But you know what? Honestly, as a technique, if you're unfamiliar with doing a CA finish on it, I tell people all the time, round it halfway, just get it round, put a CA finish on it, cut it off,
Leave it off.
yeah,
put it on again, round it a little bit more, put it on again. You can get 3 or 4 good practice finishes, especially if this is a hybrid and this is something you're not familiar with and you want to know how the finish is going to react. This is the perfect time to do that.
I'm just going to take a skew and do my ends here just to kind of clean up. Because I always leave a slight taper in the blank. But I'm not as concerned about this being overturned because I have to put a CA finish on it. So I'm going to build up a little bit of a layer because I want to make sure that the transition between the wood and the acrylic, you don't feel it.
Right.
So I always add a little extra. So I'm going to lightly sand this just to kind of smooth anything out. And this is 320. But you can see how quick the wood sands away. So I don't want to get real aggressive with the sanding because the resin doesn't turn down as fast as the wood will. And I'm not concerned about all these scratches because that ultra thin, not only is it a nice sealer and stabilizer, but it's also a great scratch filler.
It's self-leveling, yeah.
So now I'm going to switch to Delrin bushings. And because we're going to be applying more glue to this, I've already got glue on my end grains, so there's no issue there.
So someone said wobbling bushings, not mine. That was John's nickname in high school. Wobbly bushings.
So what that was, it's because the end wasn't, I used the mill to get it close, but it's not perfectly flat because I haven't used a sanding disc on it. So that allowed that bushing to not set as straight as it probably should have. But as you can see now, it's not an issue with the Delrin because the Delrin's centering on the tube and not on that end grain. So that's why I'm going to just show you how I apply the finish, but I would then go home. I'll go home and bump this on this sander to finally finish it before I assemble it.
We do that tonight?
You
All right.
home at 1:30. You're gonna
Yeah, not
jump
tonight.
right downstairs and do that.
Not tonight. All right, so I take paper towel. It's ideal if you have blue. This is Bounty. So it's going to smoke a little. But I'm going to come in here basically and apply some glue, and I don't have to worry about my bushings. I still don't want to cover them in resin or in glue because it's just something I have to remove later. But I'm going to get this all in this pores because I want this to soak in, right? This isn't the finish yet. This is the foundation. So we want to make sure that we get all that glue in all those areas and let it soak in. Did you notice I don't go straight for the glue dry because I don't really want to stop from penetrating yet. I want to make sure that it has time to get in there. Now we're going to turn the lathe down low. It'd be about 700. I don't use a lot of accelerator. I wouldn't have used that much, but I missed the first time. So now I'm going to come in here on the rag and put some and just work across the blank. You can see the shine is already starting to build, and there's the smoke from the paper towel. The blue paper towels won't smoke that bad. This is already dry. So now what I would do, I would switch to the blue, and I'm only switching to the blue because I want to add a little thicker layer in here to build up a nice seal between the wood. And because the wood was so dry, you'll feel the pores in it. You'll feel some low spots and whatnot. So I want all that to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to come in here with the medium. We'll just work from both edges. Now, if I were doing this at home, my lathe wouldn't stop. It'd just keep running. I'd wait about a minute and I'd apply another layer. But I'll do that probably depending on how many layers I need. And there's no set formula to this. I had some people ask me recently, well, in what order do I use it? And when do I use each color? And how much on each blank? The wood or the material you're turning or finishing is going to dictate when or what you use, right? If it's porous, use the ultra thin. If there's some deep crevices, use a couple coats of the medium. If it's just a really smooth surface and you want to put a nice quick finish on it, use the thin, the orange label. So it all comes down to the material. It will tell you what it needs.
I've used, and we've talked about this in other ones, I've used the orange, a quick coat or two, even on completely all Alumilite blank, because people always say you don't need to put a finish on a urethane blank. I'll tell you, you don't need to do it, but if you want to pump up the color on it,
yes,
it's a fantastic way of doing it.
That I apply a CA finish to all of my acrylic blanks, all of my resin blanks, I should say, not acrylics, but all of my resin blanks, and I do that because the CA is harder than the resin. So your resins, naked resins, yeah, they may shine up for you the first day, but you're worried about somebody seeing that clear resin yellow. I'd be more concerned about somebody in 6 months of using my pen, bringing it back because now it's all dull and dingy because the surface doesn't hold a shine anymore because there was nothing hard on there. And the CA is harder than the resin. It will hold a shine. It won't wear off as quickly. And you can take a nice cloth to it and rub over it and add a nice little luster to it without having to disassemble it and put it back on the lathe or take it to a buffer.
And to dispel, other myths out there. CA is by far the most durable, long-lasting finish. I know people, and John, we've talked about that even on the ride up here, when people say, I like a more natural look to the wood.
Yeah, or a natural feel.
Completely understand that. I completely understand that.
Yep.
But you've got to be prepared then to work it.
Yeah. It really all comes down to how much time you want to put into it. So I'm going to stop with the medium at this point. As you can see, there's a nice sheen to it. It's filled in, but we have radial scratches. We have scratches, basically, not scratches, but raised ridges from applying it with a paper towel. And they go both directions because I applied it both directions. So now what I have to do is take a little bit of sandpaper and knock that down. So I'm going to take some 600. The last thing I want to do is take this all the way down to naked wood. So I'm not going to get real aggressive. I'm going to use a 600. I'm going to use light pressure. I'm going to turn the lathe on. Maybe. Help me out here, Ed.
We got a 0, so we
There we
should
go.
have it. There we go.
So I'm going to turn the lathe speed up a little bit. A lot of people will ask, how high do you sand at? I'm around 1500. Again, it all depends on the material. I'm not applying a lot of surface pressure because I don't want to dig in. I just want to scuff the top and knock down them ridges. And now you're thinking, I've just added all these scratches, which I have. But we have that ultra thin sitting over there staring at us saying, hey, I'll take care of that. So I want this to be smooth just from all the ridges from applying it. So now you can tell where the low spots are because they're shiny. So anywhere that you see shine, that's a valley. So we have to build that up a little bit. So at this point, I don't need to add a lot of thickness, but I do want to add a leveler. So now I'm going to go back to the ultra thin. Oh, I shouldn't have stopped it. There we go. I'm going to go back to the teal, and all that's going to do is take care of them scratches that I just put in it. If I were to go with just a thicker glue over the top of that, I stand a chance of sealing scratches underneath that. So I just want to put one layer just to kind of fill them scratches, make them shiny and transparent. So this next layer of the orange fill and finish. You got a pen? Got a needle? Or just grab mine in that box. There we go. Hold on, I grab a different bottle of glue. There we go. Now I'm going to come in here with a little bit of orange, which is the thin. Rub on there. I'm not going to turn it off. I'm just going to... Yep, it's dry.
Down to 0 if you want to.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I never turn my lathe off.
No, you don't.
It's on right now. There's them up here.
All right, so there's 3 coats of orange. Now what I'm going to do, it's dry. I'm going to turn the lathe up. I'm going to come in here with some extra fine steel wool. It's the 4/0. I'm going to hold it loosely so if it gets pulled out of my hand, it doesn't pull me into anything. And all I want to do is just lightly go over this. And all I'm going to do is smooth everything out. Make it all the same level. And then I would turn this down a little bit. I'm going to come back down to around 1200 RPMs, maybe 13. I'm going to take my micro mesh. I'm going to leave my towel underneath. I use a dropper bottle of water, and all I do is I've got them all numbered. I put a drop of water on there and come in here. You can put them back on the metal bushings if you want. For the sake of time, I'm just going to do it like this. I don't spend a lot of time going through each grit. I'm applying pretty good pressure though, and I want to see a slurry building up. Because I sealed the end grains, water's not going to get underneath my finish. Had I not sealed the end grains, I'd be worried about moisture getting under that CA finish and absorbing into that wood, and it would make my finish cloudy.
The only thing that you and I do a little differently is I do mine, apply mine with the lathe off, but at this level, every second or third, I may stop the lathe and just go the other way.
Sure. Yeah, I always do everything moving, and then what I do after I go through all 9 grits, I take it to the buffer and I just buff it out, and that just takes care of it, just, makes it glow.
Oh, yeah.
I have the 3-step. And
the Beal buffing system.
the Beal buffing system with the three steps, and the Triple E white diamond, and then just the cotton flannel cloth final. I think that's what it is. And hit it dry. I don't even worry about using Plastex or any other stuff because I know I'm taking it straight to the buffer. In this case, I don't have let me find a spot that doesn't have glue on it just to dry it off a little bit. But as you can see, there's a little bit of water on there. That's our blank, and it all came from a dry piece of Buckeye burl. And
You can see the shine line.
yeah, it's got a great shine line. It's stable because we filled it with glue, and we didn't have to spend 3 days to stabilize a blank that we were going to turn off. So I will take that then home. I will finish it. I'll post it on IAP. Dean, if you want to go to the big camera again. But I'll definitely get a better picture of that pen once it's assembled, and everybody will be able to see what we did. But as you can see, it's pretty simple. There's not a lot of time or effort. It's just stop and apply glue once in a while during your turning. And if you didn't stop soon enough, you'll know, because maybe you'll get a little chunk out that you didn't want to. But the nice thing is you can glue it right back in with the CA, because you're going to put a CA finish on it anyhow. So I hope that's clear enough. If there's any questions, please post the comments. I'll answer what I can.
So now's actually a good time to pause for a split second and ask, does anybody have any questions for John?
What's that say? I can't read that.
Yes, you start with your basics, then move
Oh, yeah.
to more advanced.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
big thing is...
No, that's
for a
Anthony
different.
chatting with me.
Okay.
And Anthony made a suggestion that one of the for future events.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is once you've done it, just build your set steps and just stick to it, because they'll work for you. Once you get the glue on, and then work with your sanding papers, with your micro meshes, you're just going through the motions every time. It's the same process.
And I brought this up earlier, and I can't stress it enough, is if it's a new technique to you, especially putting on a finish like that, just round the blank over and put the finish on, then cut it off, and then do it again.
Yeah,
I know I brought it up a little bit earlier, but it's just one of those things that it's a great way of picking up that technique before you actually have to get it down. I mean, I will tell you that I've done pens in the past where I've turned it all the way where I think it's perfect, and then put the finish on and go, oh my gosh, I wish I would have thought of something else.
Sure. Now, can you cut threads and stabilize wood? Sure. Are they going to hold up as well as the acrylics? No. Anytime, I would always recommend, if you need to cut threads, use your urethane resins for that, or your ebonites, or whatever else you have out there, and then add them to your blank. It would also come down to what kind of wood, what the species is. So.
There was a demonstration at the MPG, and I don't even remember who gave it, but they were talking about, oh yes, I do, one of the Smith brothers.
Oh, James. Yep.
Yes.
They were talking about how to use a piece inside, and basically make your threads on that, which I thought was really a good idea. Sleeve is what they called it, and it really looked like a good idea. I think one of the weaknesses of all of the kit lists that people are trying to do, you're working with a resin, and the resin is not the same as the precious resin that's made by Mont Blanc. The difference between them is the amount of pressure that they are able to put on it. If you're in a home setting, you're not going to have a resin that is as strong as the stuff that they have. So, the argument that, well, all the better pens are made that way isn't quite true. They're made that way, but the material they're made out of is commercially produced under circumstances that you cannot do at home. So, when you put together any of them, your threads are going to be as good as you can make them. And I have great respect for the guys who are doing this. I'm not knocking the guys who are doing it. I'm just pointing out to you that you're never going to have the same durability that you would have with metal or with a commercially made resin. So good luck. And sure, you can cut threads in anything. Will they last? That's a completely different question.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to, what species is and wood on wood, you know,
Did you see John?
abuse.
John, you have a question about have you ever used too much mica powder and had your casting become very brittle or crumbly?
So before we move on with that, Dean, do you want to start the next giveaway?
You read my mind. So it is quarter
look
to
at-
8, just from a time
Look at
perspective.
the magic head popped back up.
Yes, Dean's head popped back up. So we're quarter to 8, so just let you know time perspective. The second giveaway is gonna be a $25 gift card. And Mark always complains he doesn't win these things. So we're gonna guarantee Mark's the winner today. So type Mark in the chat.
Oh, nice. With a K.
Mark or Mike?
Oh, God. Oh, God. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, so when it
Yes,
comes
I'm
down,
jealous.
yes, inside joke. When it comes down to have I noticed my resin blanks getting brittle from mica powders? I have not. Obviously, when I pour the micas in, I'm using measuring spoons where some people might stop with 2 scoops. I'll go a 3rd scoop. I'm not just dumping a bottle in unless I know there's only a little bit left in the bottle. Then I'll dump it in. But I'm very conscious of how much I'm using. I just know I use more than probably the majority of the people out there. Every now and then, if I put too much in and I stir it, I'll feel it's a little clumpy in the resin, but I'll stir it up really well, and I'll notice that I might get really good color separation when I pour that, but I may have to add a little more resin to it. So obviously when I'm talking about pouring resins, I've usually got, like I said, 600 grams to 1,000 that I'm working with. So that's quite a bit, and I'll usually pour maybe 2 molds at a time or have some left over that I'll pour in rods. So I have a little bit to play with, but I also always like to have a little extra left over in the cup because when I'm mixing resins, especially clear casting, just because the cup is shaped the way it is, it's hard to get in them corners and sometimes get all the resin mixed up. So it helps if you leave just a little bit in the bottom of the cup because that's usually the stuff that comes out last that causes you a problem in your clear casts. That's where you get your films. And I know we talk a lot about failures and understanding your resin. If you're seeing white film in your resin, that's the bottom of the cup. That's the stuff that isn't mixed properly. If you're seeing it along the inside, say if you're pouring a clear cast over a burl and you've got film or a milky swirl along the base of your wood, it's probably because the wood either wasn't dry enough or because there's oils in that wood. So you want to make sure you clean the wood off real good if it's an oily wood. And a lot of your Australian burls have a lot of oil in them, and so that's a very common problem that you're going to see those milky swirls in there in the clear stuff. But as far as mixing colors, the only time I've noticed that something has gotten a little brittle is maybe if my resin's pushing its limits on age. On an average, I usually have 40 gallons of resin on hand, so it's not all the same stuff. I might have 10 gallons of clear slow, 10 gallons of clear, 10 gallons of this or that, and then Silmar for other things. So it's not, I don't cast enough that I'm going to go through all of it quickly. Some of it might just be for specific things, and so sometimes that may tend to get a little older than the others, and it may end up a little brittler when you turn it.
So a bunch of questions that I normally get asked when I do something like this. First one is, and you kind of mentioned it, but you want to talk a little bit about it, is when your resin start to yellow, if one of them is starting to yellow before as you're, as
in the mixing, in the raw state before you mix them. Yeah, it's not uncommon, especially when you order your resin, that in your urethanes, the A side might be a little yellow, kind of a golden amber color. And what I've noticed is when you mix A and B together by equal weight and you get them mixed thoroughly, you don't see the yellow then, right? It's a chemical reaction that the two create. Now, we talked about resins turning kind of an amber over age, but if you add color to it, you're never going to see it, and it's not a big deal. If I have resin that I feel is really looking yellow because I've had it a few months longer than I thought, I just color cast with it.
That's another big question.
Make it dark.
Yeah, add color. You won't notice it.
Another big question that comes up is for typical Lumilights and things like that. What's the average time once you break the seal on it?
It really all comes down to how you store it. Your resin lifespan is going to come down to obviously geographical location. Are you in Texas? It may not last as long because it's warmer there. We have colder winters here in Illinois, so my resin is in my shop in my basement, and I have a room just for resin casting, and it's in a dark corner where no sunlight shining on it. And in the wintertime, I have to warm my resin up to get it thinner because it just gets thicker with cold weather.
And do you have a recommended temperature that you like to keep the house at, or your casting room
Well,
at?
my casting room, it's not recommended. I don't ask for it. It's just what it is in
No,
the basement. It's the north corner, and on a good day, it might be 55 degrees down there, maybe 60. But usually when I mix my resins in the wintertime, I'll take a short reading with my digital thermometer, and my resins will be somewhere in the upper 60s by the time I start to mix them. And the problem with cold resin is, if you want good color separation, you're going to wait for that resin to reach temperature. So the colder it is, the longer you're going to wait. So obviously I used, in my process, I'll use the 125 watt light bulb from the local farm mart. They use them in chicken coops, reptile cages, and all that stuff because they generate heat, unlike an LED light bulb. I'll put it in a clamp light and I'll shine it about a foot away from my resin cup, and I'll get it nice and warm with a tin foil baking tin over the top of it, a turkey roasting pan. And I'll just let it sit there for about 5-10 minutes, but I don't leave the shop. I'm there with it all the time to make sure there's no issues. I'll take it off, stir it up, shoot a reading, and once I see the reading get somewhere around 85 degrees, that's usually when I mix them, and then I start adding my colors, dividing them out, adding my colors. And because once, depending on what it is, if I've got a piece of burl that I know I need to get a lot of resin in all these nooks and crannies, I don't want to wait till 115 because I'm probably not going to get resin in these deep channels. I may only wait till around 100. So it really all comes down to the job, the task at hand. But for straight resin, 115, 120, sometimes on accident 125. One of those oh heck moments, and you just start pouring.
The advice that you get from a Lumilite or directive is probably a better word. Do not let it get over 85 degrees. So that's, at that point, they consider it out of warranty.
I know in the winter or in the summertime when it's warmer in the shop, especially if I'm using a Lumilite white, which has a 2-minute working time, and if I want to pour 4 or 5 or 6 colors, that is not enough time to mix a resin that's already 70 something degrees, because by the time you get it mixed properly, divided in all of your cups, add your colors, it's too late. So just a little cheater out there, what I like to do is I'll put the resin in the refrigerator, in the containers. I leave them sealed, but I've got a refrigerator in my basement that I use, and it has my unopened CAs and my hunting lures and my turkey calls and all the stuff that I want to keep nice and cool. So
Snake skins?
Snake skins are in the
Snakes?
freezer.
Yeah, snakes.
So what I'll do is I'll put the 2 gallons of resin in the refrigerator for a few hours, and I'll bring that resin down to around 60 degrees before I mix them. And that usually buys me 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds, which is a long time in a 2-minute working process. So never had a problem. I've read online where people say, don't ever put your resin in the fridge. I've been casting longer than most of the guys giving that advice, and I have no problems with it. So you can always try it and see if it works for you.
So our winner was
You
David
don't want to put it
John.
in the
We
fridge
announced
after it's
that.
opened too much, because that's you'll have
Well, not with
condensation.
CA. Definitely not with CA.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem putting an open gallon of resin
Okay.
because I refill my gallon jugs from the
Yep,
80-pound
yep.
set,
From
so
the-
I can
yep,
handle them,
Yep.
and
Okay.
they've all been opened.
Okay.
I just wipe them down and put them in the fridge. So, I'm sorry, Dean. Go ahead.
Nope, it's good. Our winner was David John. The funniest thing I have to say to you, John, the funniest thing is to me is when all your discussion is, if you would have told us 30 years ago that you'd have to go to a specialty store to get a normal light bulb, you wouldn't have believed it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty sad, you know. No more easy bake ovens.
Did you use that a lot?
I never had an easy bake oven,
Yeah, I
but
can't
I
imagine
made
why
up
not.
for it with resin and heat lights. So
Had chemistry sets.
Oh, I had one of those, and I had an electronic set where you could wire it.
yep.
Oh, I love that toy. 150 in one is what it was called. You bought it at Radio Shack. And the weirdest thing was, all I kept making was the police siren.
Yeah.
There was a police siren you could make with it.
Now you can do all that on your cell phone.
So we only have a few minutes left. I brought some bigger things that we can talk about, but let's do this. I would rather take a quick, if there's any questions for John and with respect to the hybrids, with respect to the pens and making sure that you guys got out of this what you're looking for. So any questions on that? And Dean, would you mind just switching our screen so we can see the questions on the front, please? Thank you, sir. So any questions for John about doing this on pen blanks? Because I've got about 5 minutes. I'll just kick it up a notch on some of the other stuff that you can use these things for.
Why don't you go ahead, and if they can
Yeah, nobody's
come up,
asking.
they come up
So-
with an idea, go ahead.
Now what you need to do is, and I hate to say this because it's less for me, but now what you need to do is, I guess, come up with some packages of your Buckeye Brill cutoffs and put
I've
on the
got a
website.
few thousand of those.
Right. And I hate to do that because that's less for me, but
Don't worry.
But I'm
I've
not
got
gonna-
enough.
I'm not going to be selfish because you've been really good to me and I've got some really nice pieces. But
I don't know. We seem to have some burls in the back of our
well,
car
we do have some
tonight.
black ash burl too. Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to
It's
get that.
tough when you come up here, isn't it? First thing out of the car, hey, come over here and check out this black ash burl.
After using acetone, John, how long do you wait before you cast it?
So acetone will dissipate fairly quickly. But also remember, I'm going to still warm it up a little bit. So I'll put it under that light bulb for a hair and just kind of warm the surface. So by the time the maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes under that heat light bulb while I'm mixing my resin. So by then it's all good and dry.
So I'll quickly start with a couple other things. Once you do this and you have those techniques down, this is also, it's not limited to just doing pens and pen blanks. So what I'll do is, these are basically 2 inch by 2 inch or 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, half wood, half acrylic. And what that gets you then is handles. So this is a pizza cutter handle. Same exact technique, except the finish on these things, and I'll get to that. But I do it exactly the same way John does. I will take my resin, I'll get it right to that 100 degree temperature on that one, mix it in so that I keep the balance on there. Same thing with making sure that my burls are as dry as the ones that John just did. So everything that you do, same thing that I do. The only big difference is, but you pointed that out, is something like this, and you're doing it, you can see that if I'm trying to get that 1.5 inches to 1 inch, I really have to cut some of this off, because if I just cut it here and here, the majority of this would still be full.
And what's that, a 6-inch handle?
So all my stuff that I cast is about 6 inches.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike. So this is the same exact thing. What does this get me? This gets me, and you can see I love this one. Let's go up here.
Did Donna do that one? Or
Maybe. So this has got a handle that still had a little bit of discoloration in it. So it's an ice cream scoop.
And I feel like the embedded objects like that, the worthless wood cast, is kind of like a Cracker Jack box. You know, you're just always surprised. You know,
Yeah.
you don't know what you get till you cut into it.
So the only thing I wanted to point out on this and that some of the stuff is, be conscious of what you're going to be casting and what you're going to be making out of it. So you can see on this one, because I have to screw the part into here, and I'm gluing this little piece into here. I will use a blank has solid wood on both ends. But if I'm going to be doing like these pizza cutters, and this side's just going to be the end, something like this works great. One of Dawn's blanks works great. I just wouldn't want to have something where I'm going to be putting a screw into here, like on this one, and and then I would see it. So just be aware of that when you're doing it, so that you're conscious of it when you're looking at what you're going to be doing.
And you can't have this because somebody won that.
No, somebody won that. Yeah, that'd be nice. The only thing that I was going to bring up is my finishing technique on something larger is a little bit different. Once I've got it turned and I've got it completely sanded out, I will now go to 2 coats of shellac, and this is the shellac that I use, and I believe you carry it here.
Yeah.
And so I'll do 2 coats of shellac. I'll let it sit overnight, and then I'll put it back on. So here's where we do share a technique, is then I'll put it back on my lathe, and I will 4/0 steel wool it, and I'll just knock the ends off on the shellac. And then what I'll do for my final finish is lacquer shot. And the cool part about lacquer shot, and I don't want to beat this because I know I've talked about it in other demos, this you really only need 3 to 4 quick coats of lacquer shot to get this, I mean, just shine line on there. This is 3 coats, and you can apply it every 10 minutes.
Yep.
That's the beauty of this.
And that's a nice shine, which answers the next question. You can get a nice shine without CA with that lacquer shot.
Yeah. And then all I'll do once I get this lacquer shot is put it back on, and I'll go through my micro meshes the exact same way that you do, dipping them in water. Give me a little bit of, and then I'll take it through my BL buffing system and I'll buff it out.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need some sort of a finish over the wood. You can't just have naked wood, sand it, and then buff the acrylic, because basically you still have that dry wood that you need to seal. And what's going to happen is it's going to get really dull and it's going to collect dirt and moisture. So you always want to make sure that you seal the wood. Even if you just put some CA to soak into that wood, and then put a lacquer choice or whatever. I mean, anything you want to do, you have to seal that wood. So in Mark's process there, the shellac and the lacquer do a nice job sealing it all.
Mm-hmm. And we were going to talk about this, but time running out. Same thing here. The beauty of my stuff is, or the nice thing about my stuff is, unlike John and Dawn, who have to put a gorgeous finish.
Your blank's not all pretty like that?
Yeah, put a gorgeous finish on a blank because they're going to sell it.
Well,
mine will be a little bit more.
That's actually a demo blank. I didn't have the heart to turn it into anything yet because it's just so pretty.
Mine will be a little bit more rustic here in terms of it. But you can see here, just like you did, John, you can see if I peel this off, where I used hot glue to glue this in, to glue the wood into my mold. And on something like this piece here, what I did was I put in the mold 1 piece on this side, 1 piece on the other side, and then I let my, kind of like a mini river table, where I poured my resin all into it. And one of the things that I love about this stuff, and let me get it here.
And that's where your orientation came in, right? You came up with the plan.
Yep.
And you orientated the blank in your mold, and you had total control over where the resin was going to be.
And if you look at it here, notice that the pattern is real solid on here, and that my drift goes all the way down. Same thing like you guys use on your pens, where you have your alignment on top and bottom. What I do is, instead of cutting a traditional pepper mill, and if you want to see the technique on how to do this, Ed, one of your first videos I did in a couple months ago, I did this one. I'll use these 3D printed holders, so that this way, when I put this together, I don't lose any of the wood on my spot for where that little thing is. Now, 99% of the time, you're never going to notice it, because the pepper mill is going to be sitting on the table, and then you're going to grind it. Nobody's going to grind it and then take the time like I do to put it back like this so that it all lines up. But it's the same thing. So the whole point of it was, every single technique that John just showed you, you could then do, and as Emerald would say, kick it up a notch and do it on something that's a little bit bigger. Same technique. The only thing that you and I differ on then is how we do the finish on it.
So real quick, there is a comment there about stabilized woods. It is not soft. It is wood-like. This is stable. Let me find something to hit with it, just so you can kind of hear it. These are both stabilized woods. it has a music quality to it. Basically, what it is, the wood pores have a thin resin that saturates the wood pores, and then when you bake it, it hardens and cures the pores to make the wood hard and stable. So the wood itself, it still feels like wood, only it's harder, right? It's like the hardest wood that you'll ever feel. But it finishes very easily because it has resin in it. So it won't be soft, it'll be nice and hard, and it will turn fairly easy, and it'll finish very, very easily with little effort.
So the one comment I would make there with Mr. Elvis there, who's asking these questions, is to remind him that a lot of what you showed today was not stabilized wood.
Right.
Hybrid
Yeah.
does not mean stabilized.
Right. Yes. Hybrids just mean the blank itself is something other than just all resin. And
Or
so,
all wood. Yeah.
or all wood, right? So in this case, it was a little of both. It started out, they called it worthless wood because it was wood you just couldn't use on anything else. Stabilization is a total different process, which is basically infusing the wood pores with a resin solution that is then baked in an oven to harden so that you can turn it and it's usable again. If you've never turned it, what I would recommend before you do anything, Ed and Dawn have a large variety of stabilized blanks and unstabilized blanks. Maybe buy one of each and turn it, and that way you can kind of get the feel for how they turn and how they finish, and then you'll kind of know what you like, if you want to gravitate more towards the stabilized or not. But today what I did was all soft woods. I just kind of stabilized it with ultra thin CA as I went along, but it's not anywhere near what stabilization will do to a blank.
And on all my large ones, they're all maple or a stronger domestic.
Sure.
And
Unstabilized.
I don't stabilize it.
Sure.
Stabilizing is not a predictable science all the time. So one of the things that you will find out if you use one stabilized piece and then another one, they may not be the same hardness, particularly if they're different species. Redwood, stabilized redwood is very different from stabilized buckeye burl. So we call it all the same thing. It does not all react the same way.
Right. And as John pointed out earlier too, there's some woods that stabilization does absolutely nothing to it.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Some of your
That's right.
softwoods, though, that we've talked about, the box elder burl, the buckeye,
Yeah.
most of that stuff, when you stabilize it, the weight will probably increase by,
3 times.
at least 3 times. Absolutely. I mean, you will feel it. It will be like a brick. It will be heavy.
There's a lot of woods, yeah, and an easy indicator is things that have spalted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would consider. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
True. I'm talking spalted and burrow right at the
Yes.
same time I mentioned it. Sorry, Tommy.
Yep.
I didn't see that you had commented on that when I said it, but spalted woods will typically do better if you've stabilized them.
Much better.
Yep.
Much better.
Yep. And again, like you said, though, not all woods are the same, and even same species of woods, they're not all at the same densities. So one might stabilize much easier than another one.
Yep.
But if you're going to do it, it's a process that you iron out, and honestly, you're gonna cook that wood in an oven until you know it is 0% moisture, and that's when you're gonna have the best luck. But also, how long you pull a vacuum, how long you soak afterwards. There's, as Ed says, it's semi-instructed, but there's no foolproof way that is gonna be the perfect system every single time.
They're not all going to end up the same hardness.
Yeah.
It's really what we come down to.
Yep.
One, even in the same batch, they're not
Yeah.
all going to end up the same hardness.
I mean, they'll all be better than what you started,
Oh, amen.
but you can't. But comparing one to another, they're not all going to be the same.
But I'll tell you this, one of the things that you've talked about numerous times, especially when it comes down to casting, and one of the things that you didn't mention this time, but is keeping a journal of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So go
sure.
ahead, if you want to talk a little
No,
bit about that.
that's exactly it. Keep some. Get a notebook, write down what you did, how you did it, what you used.
The temperature that it was,
Everything.
what the outdoor temperature was, humidity, any of that kind of stuff.
My notebooks have gotten a little more vague as I've gotten older because it's a system. It's kind of like muscle memory. You get to a part where I've done it so many times. This is what I'm going to do every time, so I don't write it down. But I'll write down my colors. I may say, all right, I used 10% this color, 5% this color, and then the rest was this base color. So my variations, how I poured them, how high I held them, what the resin temperature was, how long I warmed the mold, or the what piece of wood that I used. There's so many things, variables that come into to play with getting a good blank. And the worst thing you can do is not remember how you did it, right? So
If it works,
I'm
particularly.
so many times there's two things I've done wrong that that will always haunt me. One is come down with a cast that I love the colors and I love the character and not remember exactly how I did it because I did so many that day plain. I don't remember exactly how I did that. And the other was giving a pen away that I can't replicate the blank that I wish I would have kept. So that's the love of and the fun in resin casting, though, right? That's what keeps you going. Is the next one you think is always going to be different or better. So I honestly have a stash of my blanks. There's things that I'll cast and I'll pull a blank out and cut it apart and I'll look at them and say, "Oh my God, what did that do?" Those are mine, and I'll set them in a box and I'll try to replicate that so I can send them to you guys to sell. But the first ones are mine.
The other one I regret is that I never kept one of your macaw feathers.
You and me both.
I love the macaw feathers, and I am so
The-
disappointed that I never kept
The
one.
prettiest macaw blank I ever made was from a scarlet macaw, and these were feathers that I had saved over years of picking one or two out of a bag every time I would get them because they had great color changes within each feather. And I set them aside, and I was in a pen swap one year with a guy in Italy, and I made that pen for him and sent it to him because he liked vibrant colors. And to this day, that still haunts me. There's times that I wake up in the middle of the night saying, "A macaw feather.
And what-
I just wish I had it back." And
what
all
did
I
you
had
get
was
what did you get in return?
I got a nice pen from
Oh,
him
okay.
as well.
Okay.
But it was just I can't replicate that because they were individual feathers that I've never come across since. Right? It was just a rare thing, and to this day I have a picture that I still use in my demos, and I look at it and say, "Man, I wish I had that. I still wish I had it."
So huge Elvis says pine cones must be stabilized is the question. I don't stabilize mine ever.
Nah,
I
honestly,
put
it
'em in
really
the
comes down to the size of the pine cone and what you're going to do.
Yeah, I put them in the oven. I'll let them cook for 20 minutes below 220, right around 200. That'll dry them out, maybe even a little bit longer if I've got the time. I don't stabilize them. I
So-
put them right in.
Where we've seen a difference in a lot of this, does it or doesn't have to be stabilized, is when that ultra thin CA came out. Pine cones, if I'm casting a sugar pine that's this big and all I want's the heart of it, or maybe a little bit of an edge and I cut through it, then I'm probably going to worry about how soft that is, and I may soak it in ultra thin CA. I'm probably not going to stabilize it. But if they're the small pine cones or the hemlocks that everybody's casting so that you got something in a pen blank, it's so surrounded by resin and held in place, there's no need to stabilize it because resin's amongst all them petals. But what you may have to do is make sure you coat them real well to soak into the finished size pen. Once you turn it down to size,
Yep.
saturate it and let that ultra thin soak into them and stabilize the surface, and then lightly sand them again, put a nice finish over the top of them. But other than that, I couldn't imagine stabilizing all the pine cones that I cast.
Or sweet gum pods. Or
No,
any of that stuff.
and honestly, if I was going to stabilize anything, it'd be those thistle pods.
Yeah.
Because those are a pain in the butt. But I'm afraid I wouldn't get the resin out of them enough to get my colored resin in. The stabilizing juice would fill the gaps too much. So now there's a lot of guys online that talk about stabilizing all their pine cones and acorn caps and all that stuff. And honestly, I feel it's a waste of time because I can get just as good of results sealing them after I turn them down with ultra thin CA.
Again, it comes down to if you're going to have a sharp tool when you
Yes.
turn it, it will make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Some of these posts that you read about how you can't turn this, you can't turn that. Well, sharpen your tool, and yes, you can.
Yeah, light
I'll tell you
cuts, sharp
this.
tools. Yeah.
I'll tell you this. Hybrids, it's even more important that you have sharp tools
Yeah.
because you're going from a hard, dense surface on the acrylic to
And
you can say what you want. The wood is a little bit softer,
Sure
and
it
you
is.
don't want to do a nosedive into it.
You
That's
cut
when you
deep
get
into the resin, and then you're going to get a blowout or a chunk,
or chatter.
and
You'll get
it'll be
chatter
out of
across the
round,
wood.
which is why I don't sand a lot on my unstabilized woods, right? I lightly sand them, but I mostly turn them down to size, and then
Yep.
I build up my finish.
Yep.
So let the tool do the cutting. Don't force the tool. Don't think you're going to get in there and hog it down. It's going to take you as long as it takes the tool to remove that material. And right? We do this because it's fun and we enjoy creating something. So I know you always, it cracked me up when you talked about how much time people want to put into their finish, right?
Yep.
We spend all this money, we buy these nice component sets, we make these beautiful blanks, and we drill them, we take our time turning them and getting them down, and we want to spend 5 seconds on a finish, right? It's all a process. You're going to get out what you put into it. So don't be afraid to take a little bit of time on it. Slow down if you have to.
And you find that you do it enough times, just consistency alone makes
Yeah.
it. The thing that kills you is, and I will just say I've done it before, where you put a finish on and you go, oh my God, I wish I would have spent 5 more minutes to do it, and now I got to gut it, and I got to
Yeah.
Start
and
over.
I got to start
Sure.
over on
Yep.
it.
Sure.
And then I went, 5
you know-
more minutes would have got me where I wanted.
You know, when I made this lower the other day, I got it done. I took it off the lathe. I went to the buffing wheel after I micromeshed. Went to the buffing wheel, buffed it down, took it to the light. Spend the time and look at your parts when you're done. I held it up under the light and I slowly rotated it, and I seen there was a groove in it that I hadn't removed all the way from applying the glue. I put it right back on the lathe and resanded it and put a whole nother finish on it again.
One of the
And
things
then you didn't need a punch, did you? And you didn't ruin any of the components, did you?
I
because
didn't.
you didn't have them on yet.
Right.
It's a great time
Right.
to check.
But always look at your parts before you put them together. And if there's something you're not happy with, don't settle. Take the time and fix it. Right? That's what's going to set you above everybody else.
And one of the things that we don't talk about is when we do this setup, I'll use that light. I've got more light in
Yes.
my turning room than
Yep.
anything.
You have to see.
This is a hard one to turn in
Yeah.
because we're trying to keep it for the camera.
Yeah.
But at my house, I've got 2 or 3 lights directly over it,
Yep.
and it is flooded with lights because that's how you can see it. Being completely honest, I will see way more mistakes there than if I take it outside in the sunlight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so if I'm happy with it under that light, I know I'm going to be happy with it out in sunlight.
Well, and you have to be able to see, is there a small divot or something in there that I need to fill with CA before I put on my finish? So, and, you know, like you said, don't be afraid to cut off the finish and put another one on if you're not happy with it.
This quarter after, and I have enjoyed listening to all this, and I think everybody else is enjoying it too. But I just want to call to attention that if there's nothing else that people want, we don't want to keep you up all night. But I think this has been a worthwhile session, and all the conversation has been worth listening to. So, has anybody made a duck call? Yeah, a few of us have made duck calls. I don't think any of us are really great at it. Do you?
Oh, John is.
I've made a
John
handful.
is, yeah.
I'm not great at it, but I've made a handful. Turning the duck call really isn't that difficult. The big thing is for a good duck call is just making sure that you're buying quality reads to get a good sound out of them.
Made by the guy who's making the duck call, aren't they? Some of them make their
So-
own reeds and so forth.
Yeah, there are, and there's another company that a gentleman from Arkansas turned me on to, and he felt really good about the sound, and he's an avid duck hunter, and so I tend to believe him. I don't hunt ducks as much as I used to. I kind of spend all my time in the deer stand now, but
There's something though. Do you know anybody? Was there a TV show about ducks or something? And anybody know anybody who's done anything for them?
so I didn't make the duck calls for him, but I have.
This is something you should be proud of.
It is. I was years ago. A gentleman reached out to me, and it was a collaboration between the two of us. And the producer of Duck Dynasty wanted him to turn pens for the family members, and so I actually made the feather blanks for him to turn. That was awarded to the family. So it's kind of neat.
I think it's
Hey,
great.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been initially, there was talk that I was going to actually go and meet them when these were presented, but it was a time crunch apparently, and it just didn't work out. But I was always a fan of the Duck Dynasty guys. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. Duck calls, all the game calls are pretty much the same. You're just basically making it bigger, right? It's just a big pen, just a bigger hole. So.
So anything else? We'll watch them spin. We'll stay here for a couple minutes, and then, as I said earlier, if you don't mind, if you've got ideas for topics and stuff like that, please shoot them. I know that Dean picked up one today from Anthony, and we'll see where we go on that one. And any other topics, please let us know.
As you can tell, we have fun. Hopefully, we teach you a little something too from here and there. But
Well, and it just goes to show that, we all learn it just from getting our hands dirty.
Yeah.
And I feel like it wasn't that long ago I was a guy asking all the questions. And I'm not sure where it came that people now feel they should ask me the questions, that I have the answers. Because everything that I've learned, I just learned by toying around with it, by playing in the shop. So I always said I might not be able to tell you how to do it, but I can tell you what not to do.
yeah, exactly.
So
Time you ask when's the next live stream. We'll go back to our regular schedule next month,
Yeah.
which is what, the third Thursday of every month.
Whichever one you guys decide you prefer. Third,
I think the third works
It's the
well.
third. We'll go back. It's at the third Thursday of every month.
Yeah.
As we said earlier, it was just coming out of the MPG and everything else. We needed a couple minutes to get a break on stuff and do stuff. And when Ed came to us and said, he was a judge, and this was one of the things we thought, wow, this would be a great one to talk about. And these do take some prep time, so to switch gears, hopefully that helps.
Not to mention the couple of hours they have to drive each direction. But
I'll be home by 1 a.m.
so thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
appreciate everything. You guys stopping in, the
attending.
questions.
With
Yep.
that, are we ready to say goodnight? I don't have to contact Dean.
There he is.
Dean, anybody
I love the
else?
way Dean fades in and out. There's our producer.
Oh yes,
Yes.
that's the one thing I didn't do. Thank you, Dean. We appreciate your help tonight. I say that at the beginning, and I forgot completely about it. So thank you so much for being here.
That's why he muted you a couple times.
Nice.
My-
Yes.
Yeah, Dean makes this easy on our end, doesn't he?
Very easy.
He does all the work. We just stand here and talk.
Well, the
So
weird part about it is, if anybody watched, I think this is about 3 years, maybe even a little bit longer that we've been doing it. And if you remember how we were doing the first couple with one camera and
yeah,
basically old rags that we were putting behind us and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
this has been kind of fun to watch this progress.
I don't have to get on a ladder anymore.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's nice.
Oh, you're getting older. We don't want
Well,
you.
you don't want me to fall and break a hip, so
Don't want to do that.
then
Sounds
you'd
good.
have to come mow my
I'll be
grass.
shutting her down.
All right. Thank you
Alrighty.
guys. Thanks for coming out.
Night all.